talking about the June and July trip in extensive detail, and I've pulled a lot of receipts just to give an overview of what I think happened on those two, or just an overview of what did happen on those two trips, as well as some insights and things I found. I am going to be talking about the Latin Kings tonight, and I just want to say no disrespect to them at all. And I know this isn't involved in the murder, but it is intertwined. So I do want to go over some things I share. I want to be respectful about it. But some of it is new. And as some of them people may know, I have been all over this case since 2016. And I was in Web Sleuths a great deal in between 2016 and until I started this YouTube channel in 2020. And I was this user called Really Busy. And I'm going to be pulling up some stuff that I put there for a while. But a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you are things that I've shared previously, whether it be on my channel or it be on Web Sleuths back in the day when we were all piecing and finding out information about this case. So a lot of it's not new to me. It may be new to you. If I'm getting, again, as always, if I get something wrong or I say something weird, just point it out in the chat. And if you want to get my attention, put those red question marks. Those really work. Otherwise, I just kind of assume you're all talking to yourselves. So again, still waiting for these files to upload, but I can go ahead and sort of get into some of my corrections right away because I know those. I had said on the last live stream about how I thought it was kind of silly and ridiculous that Wendy said that they lost an honor to both families when she removed the middle name from their oldest son, which was a tribute to Dan Markel's mother. And I just completely, the minute I said it, someone pointed, I wasn't thinking about it when I was on live stream. And then someone said, you know, it is common in the Jewish tradition, if a name starts with a letter, then it is symbolic and it isn't just. So I didn't know that. I have had lots of Jewish people in my life, but I was never really close to someone that was really religious. So these are all new things to me. So this was in one year, out the other, but literally within 10 minutes of posting that live stream. Crap, it says there's an issue with my file and I should try again a little bit later. That's annoying. I'm still hoping it'll work. But anyway, so 15 minutes after the first comment came in alerting me to this. And I remember now, as soon as that triggered something in me, I remembered seeing that Prof Blog's post about the baby naming. And so I reverted back to that. So within 30 minutes, I caught my mistake. But what was so funny is I probably had about a dozen people contact me directly and like, hey, just so you know, and the Jewish, you know, so it was all the people coming in trying to correct me on the cultural traditions of the Jewish faith, which I appreciate. And I just thought it was funny because I ended up having a boilerplate response. I was like, yes, I know. I remember the Prof blog and da-da-da-da. But I also think it's kind of cute that everybody wants to come in and inform me, and it's all good nature and good fun. And I like how much people care. So if I can just go right now, go ahead and while I'm waiting for these slides to open, I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen with that blog in particular. It says right here, pulled up August 6th, 2009, Cubby Markel, because Mr. and Mrs. Bear, get it? Mr. and Mrs. Bear, the bristening. And then if you look here, it says, talk about Amichai. It says something about the A. There it is in the last. So you see the paragraph. I'm going to put it up to almost to the. Okay, it looks like my first set of slides just uploaded. Thank goodness. But if you look right here, it says Jewish people in the Jewish tradition, and we think we would take it Greek sanctuary. It says rendering the name of Amichai begins with the letter A, which we use to recall Wendy's Papa Aaron, Harvey's beloved father, who died while Wendy was just a sophomore in high school. So it is something, but it is, I would stand by my initial statements and ridicule that it was ridiculous for her to proposition that is a loss to both families. Because one, why would you want to hurt your own family? And there's this really good analogy that I can't take credit for, but someone shared with me. And so let's just go ahead and get back to my slides. Someone shared with me about Wendy making that, well, we lost an honor to both families when she talked about remove. So her oldest child just does not have a middle name. But someone made the wonderful analogy to me about how Wendy and her mom, Donna, and Charlie, and how people like with that kind of personality, it's an analogy of, say that someone took a car and just drove it straight into your house and caused damage on purpose. Then they got out of the car and they said, well, it wrecked my car too, so no harm, no foul. Gotta go. That's essentially what she's doing. She's like, causes all this damage. But say, oh, but it hurt my car too. So it just doesn't make any sense. I don't buy it. Yes, maybe it is in the Jewish tradition, but on its face, that her statement and her answer for that, for removing the middle name, was ridiculous. And I stand by that. But it is, the A for Aaron is, was legit, and it was in that blog. So the second, news and correction. So I want to get that. Then also there was this motion today that I saw, and this had been out for a couple of days and nobody had picked up on it. Now all of a sudden it's news and other content creators are sharing it, which is great. But just really, saw the courtroom B. It's been sitting up there for 3 or 4 days, but there was no answer to the motion for the smaller courtroom. And looks like they just quietly settled on it. And, the state didn't even push back on the fact that there was a falsehood in Rashbaum's original motion about someone in the courtroom taking a picture of his Post-it note, when in fact it was a screen share. And so it was a live feed, so it was not a courtroom issue. But it looks like he may have prevailed. I'm really not sure. I know that they need the larger courtroom by Judge Everett's own admission in one of these last case management hearings, in which Rashbaum proposed that he would be filing a motion for a smaller courtroom. He said, well, we're going to have to do jury selection in this, in 3G, because it's bigger. So 16 is when jury selection start, and it's 3B. So maybe they just put this as a placeholder. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if we'll get further confirmation of the motion being granted or denied by Rashbaum, but this caught my eye. This is an official, it looks like he quietly made the decision. So I don't know. I saw that and I was like, okay, that seems like a very specific, that is Judge Everett's normal courtroom, but he put that there. Maybe there's a reason, maybe it won't happen. But as soon as I posted that, I immediately got tagged by people like, oh my gosh. So you're welcome for that scoop. Thank you to everybody who credited me, because they're sharing it now and crediting me. I do appreciate that, because it's quite clear that I found this on my own. I have to start doing this, because or else it happens, and all my diligence and hard work just becomes stuff for other people to act like they're in the, I don't know. I have to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't care who gets mad about it. It's the nature of the beast of what this covering the damn Markel case has become. So anyway, another news and correction. So I figured out who Linda Bailey was. Remember in the past live stream, I said, trying to figure out like the person who I know I won't name, who was the fired, like a parent coordinator, was working with Linda Bailey, but I did not understand why Linda Bailey was being called. And Linda Bailey, as I know from my source, was once roommates with Kristen Adamson, and they're really good friends, divorce attorneys. I know people that in town have used them. So Linda Bailey actually was the mediator back when Dan had this other attorney. But you can see here all the mediations that Linda was the mediator. So she is going to be able to have firsthand knowledge to testify to all of these long, unsuccessful mediation. So if you look right here, it looks the first one, April 17th, 2013. Mediator is Linda Bailey. Then you got it again, another one on May 19th, again, Linda Bailey. And then then here, just to show you sort of the ending, after those two long, and Georgia talked about this in court, these mediations on May 9th, 2013, there was an impasse and no one was able to, no one was, no, they didn't come to an agreement, and they eventually did, but this is what testimony she could give. And it's funny because if she was good friends and roommates with Kristen Adamson and she was the mediator, I could see how that could be. I mean, of course, you can say they're doing their job, they put their biases aside, but if she's a mediator and she's like good buddies with Wendy's attorney, like college roommates, I don't know, it's a small town. Maybe I can understand why they got to an impasse, but anyway, I just was combing through all the documents over and over again. This jumped out at me and I was like, ha, there it is. So I'm sharing it. Okay, this is something sad again, going through all these documents, combing over everything again. Sometimes this is the third and fourth time some of these things pop up to me. This is really sad that I wanted to highlight. Is that this is, again, tied to the mediation. And there was a mediation on July 18th, 2013. It did not look like, it looked like there wasn't a separate, it looked like it was just the parties and their lawyers, if I can recall correctly. But look, July 18th, this might have been their last one because Linda was here on May, right, that I pulled. Crap, see, it's jumping. May 9th, 2013. But then they had another one on the 18th. It looks like they didn't have a mediator. Maybe it was just the lawyers, 8 hours. And yeah, you can see who was present. And again, did not reach. It was an impasse. But what's really sad is this is literally 1 year to the date of killing him. Same day, maybe an hour and a half difference in time from when the date of the mediation started. So when they were sitting there in their mediation in 2013 on July 18th, Wendy and Dan, Wendy could look across for him about an hour and a half into them having coffee, getting to it and saying, "You're going to be dead by this time next year." So we got 2013 on the left and 2014 on the right. Just the symbolism of that was pretty extraordinary. I had to put it up there and highlight that for you. Okay, let's get into the details. So what I did is I pulled from the grand jury report of what Luis Rivera said back in 2016, November 2016. And I remember Catherine McBanowa's bond hearing, which I attended in person in Tallahassee, was December 9th, 2016. So this is shortly before, and so this is in secret, and this is Luis Rivera's account, and I thought it was good to start off this way, because this is where he's at his, besides giving his proffer, where he's at his freshest. He's on the record, he's in court, and this is his first account of what happened, and I'm just going to read it, because it's like 4 or 5 pages, and it gives a good, foundation for what we're going to get into, which is very detailed. I'm also going to talk about why I think Wendy set Jeff up. Okay, so this is Georgia Kappelman and Luis Rivera, and this is in front of the grand jury. And I just sort of picked things that I thought were relevant and threw them up there. So it says right here, all right, question. And this was the trip that you took in June, the first trip. Answer, yes, ma'am. How many trips did you take to Tallahassee? 2. Were both of those with Mr. Garcia? Yes, ma'am. And on the first trip up, that's when you learned why you were going to kill Mr. Markel? Yes, ma'am. And why was it that you were going to kill him? For the kids. For what kids? For the 2 boys that him and his wife had. Wendy. All right. And how was killing Mr. Markel going to impact the boys? That I don't know. I know she wanted full custody of the kids. Who did? Wendy. Wendy, Mr. Markel's wife? Yes, that's right. Okay, so if you killed him, then she would be free to have full custody of the children. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And what was the purpose of the first trip to Tallahassee? The purpose of the first trip was to do the murder the first trip. To do the murder? Yes, but I didn't want to do that. Why not? Because, like, I found out that he was what he's going to do, and I'm like, well, this is crazy. We're going to kill a man for 2 kids? That's fucked up. Excuse my language. Sorry. That's okay. Did you suggest an alternate plan? Yeah, That's when I said, let's go rob Wendy. I really wanted to rob her. What's the use of killing this man for 2 kids when we can just rob her? And if we go to jail, then we go to jail for robbery, not for murder. Question. What would be the purpose of robbing her? Answer. Take the money. What money? The money she said she was going to pay Garcia. How much was that? 100 grand. And your understanding, he wasn't even hiring me. He was just wanting me to drive up there with him. He was going to pay me. Well, that's hiring, isn't it? Yeah, I guess. You do something and you get paid. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So, but your understanding was that Wendy was hiring Katie, or Katie to get you guys to do the killing. Yes, ma'am. And is that your understanding based on, did you actually hear Wendy say anything or see my conversations or see any conversations? No, not at all. Question. That's all based on what? Answer, Katie. Question. Garcia told you? Yeah, Garcia. Everything that Garcia told me. Everything I know is through Garcia. Question. Okay. You started to say Katie. Did Katie also tell you that? No. I was going to say because, he told me that Katie told him, and that's why we came up here the first trip. And then we came back the second trip. Okay. Tell me about the second trip. Is that when you came in the green Prius? Yes, ma'am. All right. And who was in the green Prius on that trip? Me and Garcia. All right. And what was the plan when you got to Tallahassee? What were you supposed to do? Answer. The plan was to follow him, find his route, and then catch him and kill him. Question. Okay. And how are you going to kill him? We were going to shoot him. And is this what happened? Yes, ma'am. Who did the shooting? Garcia. What was your job? Why were you brought in? I was just driving. So you drove the getaway car after the shooting? Yes, ma'am. And who was the first person that either of you or Mr. Garcia had contact with after you did the shooting? Answer. I didn't contact nobody. He contacted his wife. His wife being Katie? Answer. Katie. How did he contact her? After the murder happened, were you driving? It was like an hour. After the murder happened, we were driving. It was like an hour later he called her. All right. And you were able to hear all that conversation? Yeah, I could hear everything because I'm in the car with him. All right. Tell us about that conversation. I know he called her and he told her everything is done. I need my money. Don't play with my money. We need to get paid. And she was like, all right, no problem. I know. All right. She said, I know. Like she knew that he was already dead. Okay. Did you know how she knew? My inaudible is that it was Wendy. Court reporter. I'm sorry. What? Wendy. You think Wendy told her? Answer. Wendy told her. But do you know how she found out? She didn't say. No, I don't know how she found out. Okay. But when you called, or when Garcia called her after the murder and said that it was done, she said she already knew? Answer. She said, I know. All right. Did she say anything else about the money? No. He hung up the phone. She goes, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll get the money. The money will be there. You'll get your money tomorrow. All right. You were happy you were getting the money the next day? Not at all, because I feel sort of bad. So, I just feel sorry for the family. I know how it is. I lost a cousin myself. Were you expecting to get paid that day? That day, no, because she already said we get paid tomorrow. Okay, she said, you heard her say she was going to get the money. Answer, yeah. And you were going to get paid the next day? The next day, he said, make sure it's in the morning. The next day was Saturday. Do you personally know how she got the money? How she got the money? Katie? From Wendy. Okay, but do you personally know that? Because Garcia told me she's the one that's going to pay. Okay, but did she got the money from Wendy, is your understanding? Did Katie have money like that? No, not at all. How much money are we talking about? I'm talking about 100 grand. All right. How much did you get? I got 37,000 in cash. Cash. What denomination? All hundreds. All hundreds? How did you get that money? They were all hundreds, Katie. Katie, the next morning, I got a phone call from Katie. Hey, where the F is this blank? I'm not even going to say the N word ever. Just like, I'm not falling into that trap. Just like that, I got the money. He need to come get the money. I was like, I don't know. I hung up the phone. I made a phone call. All right, hold on. Katie called you the next day? Yes. And she was looking for who? Garcia. Okay. She couldn't get a call through though. She was talking about y'all need to come get your money. Question mark. Yeah, because she couldn't get in contact with him. Question. Okay, so what did you do? So I called my friends and told them, hey, you go get Garcia. He's at Shrimp's house, some girl we call Shrimp, but her name is Tavi, but we call her Shrimp. So he went over there and picked up Garcia, dropped Garcia off at Katie's house, and then they showed up at my house. I was in the barbershop. My wife called me. Hey, babe, Katie and Garcia here. I got a pack right here for you. And I said, don't touch it. Don't look in it. I'll be over there right now. I left the barbershop, went there, opened it up, and I see the money, put it in my pocket. And I told him, I said, hey, come get in the car. Let's go. And we went in the car and we went to the barbershop. But Katie stayed at my house because I just had a newborn baby. So Katie was going to stay there and visit with your wife and baby. Yeah, she'd seen the baby. She'd seen the baby and everything, but she's the one that brought the money. But what about Katie? Katie brought the money to my house. Katie brought the money to your house. It was $37,000. How was it packaged? It was in a brown bag. It was wrapped up. The money was wrapped up. Okay. Did you see your wife? Did you show your wife the money? No, I did not. Did you buy a motorcycle with some money? Yes, I did. Is that the only money for your participation in the murder? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Did you get any money up front? You didn't get any money up front? No, the only money up front that we got was from Garcia. Garcia got, I think, like $5,000 from them up front. Okay. Were you there when he got paid the $5,000? Not at all. He just told you that? He just told me. He came to see me and he gave me $300. Put this in your pocket. We're going to go for a ride. All right. And you said 100,000, you got 37. Do you know what happened to the rest of the money? The rest, Garcia got half. Well, I think like 40, and Katie got the rest. Okay, how do you know that? Because Garcia told me my wife's going to get half of this shit, and she was supposed to go get more. So I don't know where the rest of the other money comes from. Okay, but your understanding of the price was 100,000. Mm-hmm. All right, so you entered the plea in second-degree murder. Is that right? And you got 19 years. It goes on to say, and you'll testify truthfully. Yes, ma'am. Is that why you're here today? Yes, ma'am. And that's it. Okay, so that's the foundation. That's what Garcia said at the very beginning. And now we're going to get into the details. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Latin kings. Okay, I think that I think we can now, or I can now say confidently that I'm pretty sure there was a third trip, but I don't know the details about it. I do know that Luis also, Luis says that while he can't confirm, doesn't know about it, he believes that there was another trip. And one of the reasons we know about this, and I just pulled this very quickly from the joint motion to continue, which was around the time where the Dolce Vita revision, I believe, Corona. This was dated, end of January 2022. So it was a joint motion. I think this was the Keith McClevin. Cleveland. Well, anyway, that's when it was to continue, and both parties agreed. But in here, there's a little piece in here. It says it's about the Latin kings, and it says Rivera denies the gang's involvement in this case, yet testified in a deposition in the trial that Anthony Ortiz, King Anthony, took a third trip to Tallahassee with Sigfredo Garcia. Further, King Anthony is involved in a volley of phone calls minutes prior to the alleged meeting described above, which was the money drop. So this King Anthony, right? And so this was revealed in the deposition that Katie McBenowa's attorneys did with Luis Rivera in Tucson, Arizona, when in the federal prison, where he first revealed that he thought that there was another trip. And they were like, why didn't you say something? I think Quas was the one who was handling this deposition. But I think they both traveled out there. I don't know why 2 people. It seems expensive, but I guess this is a big case for them. So they both went out there. And so Rivera said, they asked, why didn't you say this before? And Rivera said, nobody asked me, if I'm recalling correctly. So that's that. Rivera admitted. And then Katie, I didn't pull the clip. It's just too heavy. But Katie, in one of her proffers, pretty much said she couldn't say for sure, but she was under the impression that there was very likely Sigfredo had gone up another time, but she didn't, that wasn't this June or July trip we're going to talk about. So I think between all of that, this on the statement, Rivera, and then kind of Katie would given sort of the nod that yeah there was, but couldn't really give any specifics. Definitely leads me to believe that there was. And we know Sigfredo had burner phones, or was known to, so he just went up with somebody else. But King Anthony, who is he? Let's talk about him. So these are all the calls that were just referred to. But if you look here, this is for July. This is the morning after. Look at all these calls. See, if you look here in the very early morning, the morning after the murder, Katie's trying to get them the money. Look at all these calls. She's calling text calls to Sigfredo. Then you see she calls Anthony Ortiz. Or Anthony Ortiz calls Sigfredo Garcia and back. Katie calls Ortiz. Ortiz calls Sigfredo. But just take a look at here and just look how much Anthony Ortiz is peppered throughout these morning calls on the July 19th, 2014. And you can see Sigfredo's calling, Ortiz is calling Sigfredo. Louise is calling Ortiz. So he's up in it. So if you don't want to bring other people into the murder conspiracy, it feels pretty safe to maybe call someone to go get Sigfredo and be a witness to the murder, who perhaps might already have a good understanding of what's going on. And I think Louise is the one who will answer honestly, but he's not going to give up and rat out fellow gang members if he's not being asked. He's being truthful, but it is sort of lying by omission. But if he doesn't know anything for sure, then you can see why he didn't say anything. But this is Anthony Ortiz. He was there. He's a critical witness there the morning after the money drop, and quite possibly, according to Luis Rivera, someone that Sigfredo went up with on another trip up here unsuccessfully. So this is really interesting. So this is the motions in limine. And in here, it says, during the depositions of Special Agent Pat Sanford and Jason Newland, the defense asked questions alleged members of the Latin Kings, Anthony Ortiz and Christopher Isbell. The state has no evidence and ties to these two men. So they're trying to keep the Latin King stuff out. But let's go see. It's jumpy. You share your screen. So I found this years ago, probably 2016, 2017. Let me see. Going to share. Okay, so I made this just to kind of consolidate. I have these little files on people. So I made this back in 2020 because I went up to the show me information and show me like the date that it was created. Details. So May 2020, I created this little document and I saved it. And it was about Anthony Ortiz. And so he's dead. He has died. He has a memorial site, which I'll show it to you, but I'm not going to go through it because it has a lot of photos of his family. And it's disrespectful I think. But he did pass away. So this is this is where I have all my little links. But a part of his memorial site, you can see is Sigfredo was one of the pictures that people uploaded to his funeral site. So let me go and show you. So he died in Rhode Island. Anthony Ortiz, one of those two people who I think was the third person to come up. So this is him. So February 9th to July 9th, 2017. So he passed away, and this is his website. And this is the website for which I got the picture uploaded of him and Sigfredo. So proving that this is the guy, they are friends. Another thing I'll show you. Again, you can scroll down and see a lot of the pictures, but I'm not doing that here. Let me show you something else. Okay.
Man is dead following a weekend motorcycle crash in Providence. An Eyewitness News viewer sent us this video shortly after the crash happened near the intersection of 95 and 146 early yesterday morning. State police tell us the rider, 47-year-old Anthony Cirillo Saldana Ortiz, died from his injuries at Rhode Island Hospital. Police are still investigating what happened.
So he was involved in this car accident in Rhode Island. There's two things that immediately pop in my mind, and I have not investigated them. But if you really want to, sorry, ads. But let me see here. Webslaves. Okay, so this is just something. I'm really busy, random person. You can see I joined there in 2016, right after, almost like right after arrests. I was like, let's go. And so I laid all of this out in January 2020. And look what I wrote. I wrote, someone pointed something out to me. Even crazier is about a third trip, not in June or July 2014 by Rivera and Sigfredo. Perhaps this is the one that Wendy mentions to Lacasse during the reload battle, either 15 or 50. I think so. Jailhouse Snitch also had more to say on that. And then I copied and pasted McNair, who shared a cell with Garcia and others, came forward in December and told investigators Garcia talked about being hired to kill someone. Garcia approached but look, I've right here doing that. And then there's a Tallahassee Democrat article. It says Garcia's cellmate comes forward with information on Markel. And if you look here, the cellmate, so this is the stuff that now is getting published again and circulated, these jailhouse rats. Mentor Lawyer put them up for many years. But that when there were actually articles written about, that's not new information. That's been out forever. And it might be the first time some people are seeing it, but they're actually, Tallahassee Democrat wrote articles about it. And then like here, I put here, this informant's interviews forced delay in Markel trial delay. It says Garcia referred to the woman as a mother-in-law or grandmother that wanted to kill a man to get custody of 2 children. Records obtained. So these were these real jailhouse rat. And then I wrote here, now during the trial, there's another guy brought up, another gang member. And I said Eric Mahé, whatever, but it was somebody else. I said, who has since died in a motorcycle after the murder. I said, maybe it was him. I said, I need to go back and listen. Anyone willing to pick the torch up and find out, please do. Third trip starts at 59 minutes. It references Rivera's deposition, where Catherine's 2 private attorneys fly to Arizona. I put money to, still taking shots even way back then, to interview Luis Rivera. So I cut out here this is how excited, I mean, this is in 2020 in January. I'm like going for it, right? Back then. And now I'm doing this live stream to you people. But like here, you can see it. Let's just watch it. But I totally typed all of this out. And then I caught this at the time. I was hoping we could discuss it here. What do you make of it? And back there, I'm only doing it 1, 2, 3, 4 people liked it. This was just just shows my passion for it, how long I've been at it. But let's watch. Probably get a commercial. Oops, sorry, because it started sharing another screen because this YouTube popped up. Give me a second. Here you go. Okay.
Mr. Rivera, now you had a job, a pretty good
This is 2019, the first trial.
job at Coastal Masonry, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What is Coastal Masonry?
It's a block company.
And you do primarily construction work, correct?
15 years, yes, ma'am.
And that would be my next question. How long did you work at Coastal Masonry?
15 years straight.
And you were actually working at that job when you were arrested on the federal case in 2015, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And you even got Sigfredo Garcia a job at Coastal Masonry, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this was the time frame, correct me if I'm wrong, is in between the 2 trips.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you had to fire him.
Yes, ma'am.
Why'd you have to fire him?
Drinking on the job.
And you fired him before you went to on the second trip, correct?
I don't remember.
You had to get time off for the second trip, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You had to call your boss and ask him. He didn't have to because he wasn't working there.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, around the time of the June trip, the first trip is what I'm going to keep calling it, okay? So that we can keep the two separate.
Sorry, I realized the time.
Sigfredo did not have a job at that time. Recorded.
That's not recorded.
All right.
Here we go.
So now let's talk about when, All right, now, over the past couple of days, you've testified that there were only 2 trips in this case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true there was a third one?
I can't remember.
You can't remember, okay? Do you remember telling me in the deposition that there was a third trip that didn't involve you?
Oh, yeah, I remember telling you that, but it wasn't me.
Okay, no, but you remember telling me
I
that
told
knew
you he
about.
probably came up here with somebody else.
Okay,
That's what I told you.
but you told us about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that, I think your words were he went up there with another king.
Yeah.
But you never mentioned that in any one of your other statements, correct?
Nobody asked me but you.
I asked you if there was a third trip or
Yeah.
you offered that information to me.
No, you asked me there was more trips.
So I'm going to refer you back to the deposition, okay, that you took with us in Arizona. State was there. You were swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Let's go to page 102. I have to just find the correct.
Anyway, he goes to read the part where she asks him that, but we don't need to. I think we got the gist here, and I can carry on. It's a lot more to go through tonight. So I'm just going to stop it there. Yeah, but there was another trip. So we know about. So I got me to thinking. I want to show you something else. Sorry, one second. I have to close the windows that I've already referenced, or I will start getting confused. Here's one. So I'll show you this. This is another one. Just goes to prove. So I think this guy, I'm just wondering why he was not caught up and went to jail with Louise and the other Latin kings. If he is a king and he's all up in there, and they all went in 20, let me see. Just show you this. Here's another photo of him. It makes me wonder, did he die is this an accident? Or was he actually a rat? And the reason why he was in Rhode Island was for some witness protection program. What is a gangbanger with no money from Miami doing up in white as, a sheet of paper, Providence, Rhode Island? Like, what connection? And maybe he does have family member. I don't know. It just seems very odd when someone like him should have been caught up in the RICO. So either he was a rat, an informant, and that he was in witness protection, and then maybe they got him and it wasn't an accident. They found out where he was. Maybe that motorcycle says it was under investigation. It was early morning hours. Or he fled. Maybe he took the $50,000 and hightailed it, but that wouldn't have been him because he was there for the money drop. So if he had taken the money, maybe they took it and split it. Who knows? But if he went with Garcia, but anyway, he's way where he's not supposed to be when he dies. And I find that very suspect. And I find it suspect he didn't get caught up in the RICO because he's named in all the documents. Look at this. Look at this right here. It's this one I want. Here's a Daily Mail article. Federal grand jury has indicted 29 people. And it looks here. It says right here, among those taken down were high-ranking members of the criminal group, including Christopher Isabel, who we'll talk about, also known as King Nano. And then look here at someone else, and this is Luis Rivera. That's the leader. And let me see if it mentions. I don't think it mentions. Let's see these names here. Well, he wouldn't be caught up if he was, he's not caught up. So I don't see Anthony Ortiz caught up as being arrested. If he's a king, I would think he was. But then you got to look at this. And then here's another thing I found. This is a Vice article. And it details the insides and outs of this Latin King War. But what was really funny, so right here. See this King Nano Isabel? It was so funny as I read. I couldn't really find it in preparation for right here, but they also talk about, let me see here. Control F, let me see. I guess he's not mentioned, but I really want to show that Isabel. He's in the Latin Kings. He ended up, there was a threat on his life. It's a fascinating story. And I think he ended up being an informant. And he actually wanted to be a cop. Like he was like pursuing enrolling. He was a king. I think he was a second in charge. And he was pursuing going through the police training or wanted to be. But it's really fascinating. I don't want to get too much involved in it. But Anthony Ortiz should have been, if he's a king. Anyway, it's just very interesting that Luis Rivera and all these people are caught up into it. And, one of these people that were caught up into it may have been the person that Sigfredo had brought up previously. So that's what I know. And let me see if that's it. All that got on the Latin Kings. But yeah, if we're talking about these two trips, we might as well talk about there very likely was a third trip and maybe another one in between. Maybe Sigfredo came up by himself in between the June and July and just couldn't do it. And maybe it's very much like Catherine Magbanua proffers that takes 2 or 3 to get it done, for the truth to come out or for the deed to get done. So let me see here. Let me see if there's anything else from Anthony Ortiz. He dies in a New Bedford. There was a report of the cleanup. We'll get to that a little bit later. And then you see I just typed these little notes to myself. Did he bounce or was he on the run from the police? Just back in the day, sort of my notes. I have little files. I'm like Scientology. I have little files on everybody. Okay. All right. So those two. So those are the two guys that were kept out of the trial, the motions in limine. Rental cars. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm convinced at this point that there was an effort made by Wendy and her family to set Jeffrey Lacasse up. Lacasse, I believe. And there was a point in, I didn't pull it for sake of time. This was very heavy, but there was a point in the police interview on July 18th with Wendy, and Isom, comes in and out of the back and out of that room over the course of that several hour interview. And one of the times he comes back, he's collecting information on Jeff. He's asking if Jeff has a gun, and he specifically asks what kind of car Jeff has. And you can see Wendy get, very, and she's like, well, he drives a silver car, and I forgot what she says, but very specifically, she's like, I think Wendy says it's either Isom, she says, or Isom asks. I'll probably pull this and make a little video of it because it's very interesting to me. I think this is a deception by Wendy, and it shows her pre-planning. It's just, I read her. A lot of people want a simple yes or no, but you got to understand how Wendy is thinking. Wendy's throwing out things to confuse and deflect. She's thinking on layers about this kind of stuff, much like taking Jane for the walk and making Jeff seem like all crazy. So Jane is all teed teed right up to suggest Jeff as being someone who's kind of out of whack within Wendy's peripheral. And Wendy doesn't even mention to bring up a guy she just broke up with. No, Jane does it. So Jane, it makes it more credible to consider Jeff if Wendy's not even thinking about it. She does a similar tactic, in my view, of manipulation, because Isom comes back and he says, what kind of car does Jeff drive? And he specifically asked her, there's a question whether it's a 2-door car or a 4-door silver sedan. And Wendy says it's 2-door. And Isom looks at her and goes, are you sure about that? She goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think she's trying to make it seem like she's not trying to point to him, much like having Jane bring her, like she's not trying to point to him too much. I think that she's actually lying there. I think she very much knows he has a 4-door car, and that she's sort of making herself look more innocent, like she's not using. Yeah, I know it. I see it. I've watched it many times. So anyway, just very interesting. Why would she say Jeff has a 2-door car and that she was pretty sure when he most definitely had a 4-door car? This is crazy when you look at it like this, right? These are the cars that were rented. This is Jeff Lacasse's car up here in the top in 2014. These, of course, aren't the exact car, but these are like the make and models that I was able to pull from the information I have. But look at Jeff's car in 2014. Then look at the car that we have rented by Sigfredo on June 2nd. Then look at the car rented by Sigfredo on June 4th. And then look at what actually was the car we all know now, which was the Prius that Rivera rented on July 17th, right? Look how similar. If you're fleeing, a car is fleeing a scene, there's all kind of, you can't dismiss that. We're just getting going, right? I'm just putting out the obvious here. We can poke holes in this theory that this car was rented on purpose that looks like this. Oh, it's an extreme coincidence. Let's get into it. Okay, so you got to think about comfort rent-a-car, right? So if you look here, this is where Sigfredo went in and rented twice. So he went and rented a car on June 2nd, got a ticket in it almost immediately, and then had to go take it back and get another car, presumably because he got a ticket, right? And that, you don't want a ticket tied to a car that you're about to go do a murder for. So look here. So say you walk up to this place. A lot of people, when they're thinking about car rentals, or at least I do, I think about I'm at the airport. I think I'm at LAX. I think I'm at JFK. And then I need to go, and there's just a fleet of cars to choose from, right? That's not the case in these little hole in the walls, right? So, and look at, there's more white cars. So these are Google images from Comfort and Rent-A-Car, and it's from March 2014 and March 2015. And you just look here. It just feels like to get a silver-ish type 4-door sedan twice from the same place, it kind of, to me, feels like maybe on that letter that was printed out, Charlie put his little latex gloves and printed out that instruction letter and slipped it into Catherine Magbano's diaper bag. I would say that it's highly likely, based on everything I'm going to roll out, that it's quite possible that there was a little line in there saying, if you can, get a silver 4-door sedan. Because look, he just walk up there and twice gets 2 silver 4-door sedans. It's like not, I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence. Okay, then you go to Save Gas Hybrid Auto Rentals, which is where Rivera went. And it's the same thing. And what's so funny, if you go to the archive and you see May 2013 and July 2015, or sorry, that's May. It shouldn't be April. I forgot to switch that. But look here from the one that's on the photo where it says May 2013. I think you can see the murder. Is that the Prius back there? Look all the way back with the tinted windows. You can't see the other passenger side, whether it's got a discolored side mirror, but I think that might actually be the murder vehicle, because that's the car rental place, and that's May 2013. So it's a year so So anyway, you just go look in here. But the point of me showing you the archive stuff, yeah, this is July. But the point of me showing you this is just show you when these guys walked in to rent a car. It's not like they were choosing from a fleet of possibly getting some generic 4-door silver car, and it was just a coincidence. I think it was purposeful. I think they purposely were trying to get a car, which would be evidence of setting Jeff up. Again, it's not a fleet of cars, you know? So this is it. So if you take into account Wendy's timing of the breakup, the fact that these two hit attempts were timed to take place when Wendy knew he was driving, and so the first time in June 4th, it was nighttime when the hit was supposed to happen, that night or somewhere else. And Jeff was at Wendy's house, and Jeff was saying Wendy, June 4th, which is something he could have never known except in piece together in retrospect, thinking about June 4th. He just knew one night his girlfriend had an upset stomach and he was going to go get her medicine. So he actually ran to go out in his car that night in a silver sedan the night that hit was supposed to happen. And so he would have been out and unaccounted for, right? And Wendy would be the one sending him out there. Number two, he may not have been driving right to a place right up, next to where Dan's house was, but he's out, right? He's out or on the way. And so if that hit had happened that night and everyone's looking and calling to the police station, Jeff would be in cuffs, being out. And if someone saw a silver car and Jeff is out in a silver car and's got a motive, Jeff would be in jail and they would be questioning him. It would be highly suspect. So she sent him out in that. And then again, she confirmed the trips that last time they were at yoga on the 14th. And she said he was walking away. He thought the relationship was over. She had been very cold to him. And then she called him back as he was walking to his car and asked specific details about where he was going, the path, why he may not actually end up going on the trip. Info gathering, right? 4 days before the murder. So here's the issue. Here's the one issue. Here's the caveat is Rivera has said that he was not asked that time to get a specific car. Right? He was asked about that and he was not able to say, Garcia told me to rent a silver car. Perhaps he forgot. It was 2 years, right? And he does, and we're about to read it in a second, he does get the June rental consistently wrong. He says it's a black Nissan. I'm spelling Nissan all wrong all throughout this, but he says that he thought that they were driving a black car up there when they weren't. They're driving silver. So I just think this might be something he just got wrong or didn't remember. It had been 2 years since they confronted him, and it's just a tiny detail. He got big things right. But that would be the one thing. And of course, Sigfredo's not talking, so we don't know. So what we know about the June trip, June 4th, June 5th, the car rental first was rented a blue silver Hyundai on June 2nd. He got a ticket and he returned it for a silver Nissan. And the car was local use only. And then the lodging was at the Budget Inn in Tennessee Street, and they met with Shadrick Nobles. Okay, Comfort Rent-A-Car. Okay, so you look here. Sigfredo rents June trip. Sigfredo rents the car. That's his job. And as we know, Katie was driving him and helping him. But you look here, you can see on the left, it says June 2nd. If you look over at that far column on the right-hand side, if you go down, it's a Nissan Altima Silver. And June 2nd, and he's rented it, Sigfredo. And there's the picture of the sort of make and model. Then you look also on June 2nd, at 9:48 p.m., he gets a ticket and for speeding in that car, in the rental car. So that's what we know. So he takes back this car, right? Now we're on to the car he rents on June 4th. This is the one that Rivera keeps referring to as black. Okay. So he gets this from Kunter. He goes back because he puts the deposit down. There's all the receipts. Okay, so as we know, they don't have Sigfredo's telephone details. They only have Rivera because something about the carrier, there were mergers and acquisitions. I don't really remember, but it was a carrier issue. But if you look here, I mean, they're tracking these guys and they've got them point by point, which is all the phone calls. They're so stupid, including this stuff. So if you look here, they've got them, they're going. And so they've got them going, up, and they've got them on with a speeding ticket on June 4th on the trip. They're only tracking Rivera. Then it shows they've got them at the budget in to GPS. And then what's funny is not only are their phones tracking them, the rental car's got a GPS. So once they've got this, they've got them where they are, which is so funny because you have Garcia saying they don't have enough evidence when you refer back to those letters with Baja Harrison. It's like, what? Again, just more consistency with them. They know where these guys are when they're in Tallahassee because of all this phone. So they're going around, and then they've got them going back because of the headsets. Okay. This is the proffer that Rivera gave, and it's just a lot. He's hard to hear. So I'm just going to go over some things and apply this, what he says, to the June trip, and we'll do that on the back end with the July trip. But look here, here he's talking about how the first trip, they're asking if he rented the car, and he said, no, he didn't. And he said it was Garcia, and he came with the car. And you look here on the right, he says, what kind of car was it? He said it was a black Nissan. Well, we know that's not true. So I just think if he's just not getting some of the stuff about the rental cars, right, which gives me hope that he's overlooking the fact that he just is forgetting Sigfredo said, hey, man, get a silver 4-door. He's like, oh, okay, no problem. It seems like something that you would forget. Or maybe it's just wishful thinking. And it talks more about how this is he said it had to be the month of June or July. And it says, now, were you the one he was intending to do the murder? Or why were you involved? And it says, because he trusts me. And he's basically saying that he was Sigfredo was hired, and I was just going along for it. And they push back on him a little bit here. But it's really funny here on that line 15 on the second page. It says, I was rolling a blunt and we drove. I was drinking the whole night that way. That's it. And then we got to Tallahassee and we're like, oh, we need to rent a hotel. And so they're talking a little bit about the trip. And then it says, the one you drove was fine and you saw it. You said that it was the first place you stayed at. Answer, the first hotel I took you to, that one. Yeah. I stayed there twice when we came up here. So this must be the Tennessee Street. And it says here, but at some time you meet some other people while you're up here. And he wrote, yeah, Fredo met some guy that night that rented the hotel. So now we know that's Shadrick. What's up, Shadrick? Wherever you are. And, they're talking about how they kind of cased him and how they were drinking all day. He wrote here, it says, yeah, I got to the room. We were doing drugs. We had powder. We had beer. But we had a bottle, and he had a bottle in his pocket, and we were drinking. And we had a bottle. We were chilling all night. And they said they got up. It says here, again, he refers to the black Nissan. They weren't driving a black Nissan. It's getting that detail. But he's talking about following them. And it says here at the top of the page, so we followed him all the way to school. He dropped the kids off. Boom, I lost him. I guess he was going to the gym that morning. It says when he said when it was a Nissan, do you say it was a Nissan or it was a black 4-door or 2-door? I said, no, he told me it was a 4-door Nissan. Okay, just like the one we had just in black. Okay, so I have to put Markel's car there. He's just getting details confused. I mean, like anyone would. He said, talking about the 5,000, says, I got it from the lady. So they had 5,000 on that first trip. they're talking about how he wrote here, it says, he said when he got the money from the lady, he still hadn't told me her name yet. He said, I got the money from the lady. Well, his wife got the money. So Katie gave him the money. But he told me about the lady. He told me, yo, the lady got the money. She's going to pay us. So, you know, all this driving around and talking about the money, I just told him we should just go rob her. That was my intention. Fuck this guy. I don't want anything to do with this guy. I don't even know this guy. It says, right, how did you know that? How did you know Katie told him? He's saying Katie told him everything. So because he stayed talking with Katie on the phone. Hey, babe, what's going on? Hey, lady's going to have, hey, she's going to have the money on time. Tell her don't play with us because we'll show up at her house. Tell her she better have that fucking money. And he always kept telling her that. So he's overhearing Sigfredo and Katie talking. Talking about how Shadrick rented them the hotel. Says I stayed there for about 3 days. Here it is. It says, talking about Shadrick. It says, we got it. We kept buying for him. The same night, we were just hanging out. We were just doing coke, hanging out. When I came back, every time I came back, we would meet up with this guy. They're talking about Shadrick. They ran into him by coincidence on both trips. How did you meet him? Sigfredo had his number. We found him one time driving when we came up here in the Prius. That day we shot the fucking Prius. We'd seen him the same day, maybe half an hour before that happened, and that's when we bumped into him. And we asked him, hey, what's up? We need some powder. And it says the same night, it was just scoping him out. We ain't do nothing. We came down here following him for 2 days. And after that Friday, we were gone. We were here from Wednesday to Friday the most. I was gone. That was it. It just came out here, scoped him out. We could see what he was about, where he'd go, what his routes. But every time he'd go to the daycare, I lose him because it used to take too long. I'm like, man, this guy never came back out. And then I go drive back and the car would never be there. So Dan went in and like had breakfast with his kids. And I know because someone who saw him interacting with his kids on that fateful morning says that he was playing and he was singing to Frozen, I believe, if I'm getting that correct, I think. That morning that he was died. So he would like hang out. And I think that then they were stalking him. They did not understand that he wouldn't just drop off and leave. And I think that him staying there caused them confusion following him. So he wrote, so we would just go back to the hotel and hang out partying. We were just out there partying. And then we would do the same thing the next morning. We'd wake up, we'd follow him all over again, the same daycare. It says, we knew where he lived. So what was the use of following the guy? I said, why do you keep following this guy if you know where he lives? You were in the passenger seat? Yeah, I was in the passenger seat at the time. You know, he was following. That was it. That night was over. It was a done deal that night. That night I came up in the car. That's when everything happened. I drove. So they're talking about they were supposed to try to do it on the first night they got there, I guess on June 4th. Let me see here something. Share with you guys. Look at this. This is interesting because they always say they couldn't find him, and that's why they didn't do. They intended to kill him, but they couldn't find him. And one second, I want to share this screen. But I also remember this back in the day. This is a Tallahassee Democrat article from editors, June 4th, 2016. So this almost, Sigfredo was arrested on May 25th, 2016. So this is about a month after. And there's our friend Jim Lewis, who is a witness in the case now. And look here, it says, prosecutors say the June trip was cut short when a Miami rental car company found out, which would be Comfort, found out that Garcia and Rivera were in Tallahassee. The car was rented for local use only. Chief Assistant State Attorney Georgia Kappelman said the company pinged the GPS on the car, and Rivera and Garcia immediately turned around and headed back to Miami. And I think I saw somewhere it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or like the car company, there was like a call in at like 3:45. I need to go check my records. Yeah. Phone call from the rental car agent was at roughly 3:25. So maybe Sigfredo just didn't tell Luis how stupid he was to do that, to rent local use only. But it's right there in black and white. The June trip, that's why it was cut. It wasn't maybe because they found him. I think this is why. I think Sigfredo just didn't tell when he got that call, because he rented the car and put his number. I think that Sigfredo just didn't tell Luis that he had screwed up, and they're like, yeah, let's just go back. Because Sigfredo was already saying, I think when he got that ticket, he was saying this is a bad omen. In Gainesville, we should turn around. That was in July when he was driving. And then the Prius, and they got the ticket in the Prius. And then he also was feeling weird about it when he saw the owl. He said he saw the owl and took a photo and put it on Instagram. And that gave him a bad omen, even though later in a depot, he did say that he took a picture of a lion, which makes no sense. But anyway, back to the owl. So just like, it seems like, and then also Luis says that he really just wanted to go robbers. It seems like all the while, Luis is just getting a bad feeling, or just doesn't want to do this, which kind of makes sense if you look how everything shook out at the end. Luis Rivera is the one who immediately confessed and was like, this was a mistake. Give up the Adelsons. They got us. He was the one most hesitant about going in and following through, by his own account, of course. And also, he was the one who bore out in his actions. So his actions and his words kind of matched when you compare him with the comparable players in this case of the conspiracy. So I think that's why the June trip didn't work out. But a macho man like Sigfredo is not going to admit that he, as Katie said, did something stupid. Don't do anything stupid. Yeah, that was stupid, to rent it for local use only, and you get pinged. Let me get rid of that. I want to go back and just show a little bit of Shadrick Nobles. I want to give a shout out to Murder by Maestro, because it's so helpful when people clip. Well, let me see where I am. I actually need to, my last add slides. Okay, 1 second. You can read this for a second. And it's interesting on this one because they straight up ask, and you probably remember from watching the video, Luis, if he's killed somebody. And it says, if the intention was always that, if Rivera was going to be the killer, this is where they really pressed him on this, to be honest about that. If that was because he was the gang member, right? And he says that he thinks Sigfredo thought that he had killed people, but he'd only beat people with bats. And then it said, but you mentioned before that on the first trip that it was the intent that you were going to do the shooting. And he wrote back, yeah. He said he thought I was going to do the shooting. I wouldn't have enough balls to shoot somebody for some kid's man, so I didn't do it. It's like, but you wouldn't do it for $30,000. I couldn't do it for 30. I didn't even bring the gun. That's how crazy it is. But you had the gun for the first time, the gun the gun came from me. The first trip, I had the gun, grabbed it, cleaned it with alcohol, cleaned it up, and he held it the whole time. But we're talking about the first trip. Yeah, I had the gun to tell. The first trip, you supplied the gun. Yeah, I supplied the gun. And the second trip, Okay. Throwaway phones. Talking about, you can hear Catherine McBann's voice. Okay, and they're talking about how they had Hamano go pick Sigfredo up. That's that morning. What don't we say? Okay, so they're going back because they're talking. They're trying to keep Rivera on talking subject on the first trip only. And it says, Isom says, okay, so you come up here, you go to the hotel, and you stay there. Crackhead gets you a room, register it for you, and then you stay there for 2 nights, 2 or 3 nights. It sounds like, yeah, same room, 109, 1010, or 110. One of them, I think it was 110. I'm not even sure, but one of them, I showed you the room that it was in. It was one of them. So they went around town with Luis Rivera in a van. It says you go to the house. You already know where the house is. Do you have to use a map to get to the house, or do you drive straight to the house? He wrote, we drove. We was driving to come to his house. We stopped one time. It was like, man, I can't even remember how to get to Tallahassee. He grabbed a map real quick and he's like, okay, fuck it. I need this. And he threw it away. And then we got there and we went straight to his house. So he says, I can't remember how to get to Tallahassee. It implies that he's gone there prior. Okay. And they're talking about parking down Benton Road. So just read that for a second. I am going to read this for a second. I have to pull up my slides. 1 second. They did not import properly my last set of slides. Try again. Okay. So they're talking about casing them, following them. I said, so we would leave the first night we were here. We left. We just ended up going to Hooters. And I know where Hooters is. That's hilarious. And we ate some chicken wings. We drank beer like crazy. We went back to the hotel and did pot and drank and just hanged out. What's so funny is that Hooters they went to is back in the day, I was in college and it was one of those things where you call a radio station, you know, and you like win a prize. So I knew the trivia answer. So this is how old school. So it was back in the day. I called the Tallahassee radio station and I won. I don't even remember what the answer was, but the Hooters is on Monroe Street. And it's funny, it's more north of town. I don't know if it's still there, but it's so funny is the thing that I won from the radio station in Tallahassee was that I could bring like 10 people. It was like 10 or 15 people. It was like a big number to a VIP all you can eat wings at Hooters. And I was like, what? You're giving me 10 people VIP, like a wing party at Hooters of all you can eat wings? It was like the weirdest thing. So of course, what I did is I took my friends and invited a lot of guy friends, some friends, and we all went to that Hooters that they set out and had like a radio party, like unlimited wing party, which was really funny. So anyway, says we ate some chicken wings, drank beer like crazy, back to the hell, did pot, drank, just hung out. Like the first days they got there, they acted like they were on vacation. What caused you to leave town? Why did you just give up and just go back home? So I told you why I think so and why Georgia thinks so is that rental car company pinged him because they're out of town and the GPS told on them. Answer, me personally, I told him, listen, man, I don't think this is going to be worth it that day. I said, man, this is not worth it. We should just get out of here. It's bad. Think about it, man. You know, I got to do it. The money, this and that. He's got a baby with a hole in the heart and newborn. I was like, all right, whatever. But we are leaving. We left. And then probably like a month later, the second trip, he's like, man, I got to do this. What's so funny is Rivera, if this is true, is probably like given this like lecture. And then probably Sigfredo gets the call. And it's like, he's like, okay, well, the rental car just called me. So I guess, I don't know, just thinking. So he's talking about this is all because of Katie. And that how she had them all confused, saying basically that he did this, you know, for money, but also to win back the respect or to do something to get Katie back. And they're talking about Hamano, going to go get him at Shrimp's house, who we know is R.I.P. Anthony Ortiz. It says, this is about the problems he's having with Katie. So here's Isom again saying, so y'all didn't do anything the first time. Did anybody call you when you were heading back to Miami? Or was it, what's the first indication? And then Lewis answers, he was talking to her. I know he kept talking to her on the phone. At the first ride, he talked to her a lot. I know he did. He kept talking to her. I kept telling him, yo, man, get off the phone, bro. Why do you keep talking to her? Ain't nothing to talk about. When you get down there, you can talk to her personally. No need to be on the phone. I told him, that's how we're going to get caught. I told him just like that. That's how we're going to get caught. You are on this phone. You talk too much, especially when you're drunk. You speak too much. But we always keep talking. He always kept talking every time she would call. Like, there she go again. Oh my God. But he didn't call her when y'all were on your way back. You decided to abort the mission. You weren't going to do it. You weren't going to go kill the man at this time. This is in June. Yeah, the first night he called, he was just like, nothing happened. We'll probably come back, but nothing happened today. Fuck it. This shit is sour. We couldn't even find the guy. We followed him every time we would go to his house. I couldn't tell whether he was inside his house because his car go in the garage. So we would never know if he was there or not. Did you hear a conversation between him and her, or was anybody questioning why you didn't do it? No, ain't nobody questioning us. Ain't nobody going to question me. I think that they don't even know I was going on the ride. The only one that knows is Katie. She knew I was in the car. But what's so funny is, the rental car kind of brought them back in June. But it's so funny is that we saw the text from Donna that was introduced only in this last trial, which was to Charlie saying, I'll know you'll come through for me. I actually have it right here. I'm looking at it. But I can't. Let me see if I can convert this to PDF. And I can upload it. But we know that day after that failed aborted trip, while we may not be able to, Lewis may not have known there was disappointment. We do have that text. I can't put it on the screen because it's going to take me too much time. But Charlie wrote on June 7th. So they're coming back on June 5th. So just shortly after, on June 7th, or maybe it's June 8th. So a few days after, Charlie texts Donna, okay, have fun. Still working on Dad's B-Day present. And Donna wrote back, I know it's a tough B-Day, being 70 and all, but I know you'll come through. Thumbprint and a kissy face, Mom. So a few days after they're back, they're already talking about trying again. And you can see right here, it says, I asked him, and he's just, Katie knows I'm there. And then there's a talk about Wendy, about seeing Wendy the day of the murder. It says, that day of the murder when I seen Wendy. So he's saying he saw her on the day of, or the day, he's probably just speaking in slang and not being very specific. That's when I asked him, who's the lady? He said, that's Wendy. I can remember her clear as day with those two boys. So they're talking about, I'm wondering if Luis Rivera saw her in June and not in July, and he's getting that confused. It says, driving back to, so he's mixing up the trips right here. He said, that's Wendy. I remember clear day of those two boys. Question, when y'all get back, you just drive back, straight back to Miami? Yeah, straight back to Miami. Where do you go from there? What car, which one? The car he was driving, the rental car. Oh, the Nissan? Yeah, I think it stayed with him for a couple of days. I think he stayed with it. I came back, and when I came back, I was always end up Billy's. So, we're talking about when they get back. And again, here it says, so what's the point? You just like that, you're just going to do this, or was that it? Are we not going to do this now? The answer is, we didn't speak about it. So I figured like it was kind of dead. But then he told me, look, we got to go back. The same night? No, I think it was a couple days later. So that would fall in line with the text between Charlie telling Donna he's still working on it. So a few days later, they saying they got to go back. Anybody wanting the rest of that 5K back? He never told me about the money, if they wanted it back or not, but I know the money was paid and that he had to do it, like I'll give you interest, but you got to go do it. So that's June. This is what we know about the July trip. I'm not going to play the Shadrick right now. I'll play it in a little bit. It says, Rivera rented the Prius, the Budget Inn, and then they went to the Roadway Inn on North Monroe, and they met with Shadrick again, shot a hole in the Prius. And then at the end, when they get back to Miami, Secreto loses the Prius, and Luis has to come in. He parks it a couple blocks from Shrimp's house, and it's late to be returned. And so they have to go through all of that. So those were the notable events. again, these cars, can't harp on this enough. So now we're on to the last car that resembles, or it could be mistaken for, or described as Jeff Lacasse's. But we're now here at, now it's, so Rivera, by his own admission, Sigfredo ran into the car and was going to be the driver, and Louise was supposed to be the trigger man. Now the roles have seemed to have shifted this time, and it's now Louise renting the car and being the driver, as we can see on videos and the ATM, that he's now the driver of the car, and Sigfredo appears to have been the trigger man. So the roles shifted, and the rental cars are rented in reverse. So again, they're tracking them, and now they've got them going, right, on the July trip. And they've got both their phones here now. So it's not just Rivera. Now they have Sigfredo as well. Going back, says, all right. So he says, we need to go back. We have to go back. I'm going back. And the money's been arranged from before to make another trip. And you're not going to get you're not going to get any more than we originally promised. That's just the 30 plus 5 plus 2. All right. So basically he says that you go to the rental car place, you get the Prius. You go drop your car off. Yeah. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, sir. So what happens from there? They talk about the guns. They talk about leaving, getting the bullets. And it says, question, okay, so you get the Nissan. Are you driving? Not the Nissan. Question, the Prius? Answer, the Prius. Question, you rented it. Answer, I drove. You said something about him, he might drive it or no. Was he ever going to drive the Prius? No. I drove. He drove for a little bit the night we left. He took off, but then he was drunk. He was like, man, you should drive, because if we get pulled over, this car's not under my name, it's under your name. So I was like, you know what? You're right. And then I told him, I'm on probation, man. If we get pulled over, I'm going to jail. Question, are you saying that to him? To him. And we get pulled over. Okay. So the day we get pulled over, the officer grabbed my license, came back, gave me a ticket, was like, slow down, put your seatbelt. He gave me a speeding ticket. And that was it. I looked at Garcia and I told him, this motherfucker didn't take me to jail. So you got a ticket in the Prius, the second trip, on the way up here, And there it is. That's him renting the car. But if you look here, so he's rented the Prius, and then so he got it timeout on 6/15 and the date back 7/17. But you look down here, it's in the notes that he's extended it. He extended it to 7/17, 7/18, and he paid the extra. He needed it for a few more days. But then you look here, I think this is when they lost the car and he couldn't find it after they got back. They extended it to the 20th and then paid an additional. Says, do you have any idea what town you are or road you were on? Man, I kept going into these towns, I don't know. I'm not good with these towns, I know. The only thing I'd probably say, they kept saying Gainesville, because I was like, every time I pass, I'm like, yo, are we close? Every time I used to see, because it got a G on it. And I said, yo, are we close? And he was like, we got about an hour from Tallahassee, something like that. And I'm like, all right, but that's when I got pulled over. So here's the budget. I have the ticket in here somewhere. Is it misplaced? It'll come up probably later. Misplaced it somewhere. But the ticket that Louise got. But anyway, just here, if you look down at the bottom with this Excel spreadsheet, you can see this is the auto. The auto's tracking him as well on this time. And you can see, they've got him at the budget end, and there's Louis signing for the budget end. Then they go with the roadway in. They're tracking them. It says the rental service provided location for the suspect vehicle, showing it North Monroe and 6th Avenue after midnight. And yeah, it's 2 cell sites consistent with servicing the roadway in. So they've got them moving. They've got them on the day of the murder. We go here. And they've got them going back to Miami after the homicide. So this is also them tracking via the phones and the rental cars. And see, they have both numbers now. So they've got both Garcia and Rivera as opposed to having only Rivera on the June trip. So they're talking here about in the morning, because we got there at 10 at night, 10 to 11 at night, and rented a hotel. We were hanging out, just chilling. I said, man, I'm going to go to sleep. I got to get some rest. I said, because if you are going to have me watch this guy all fucking day long tomorrow, I got to get some rest. So I tried to fall asleep, but he was still awake doing coke. I went to sleep. The next day, it was Thursday. It was Thursday the next day. We drove around there. I went around the block. I ran around the block to the park behind his house. He said, pull in here real quick. Let me go see if he is home. So we pulled in. He walked over there. He looked, came back. He was like, go around the house. He was like, go around the house. He said he's seen something, but he wasn't too sure it was somebody. So when I go around the front of the house, then I come back like this. So I'm driving this way. Wendy is walking this way with her 2 kids. So I'm driving before I get to the bump, which is a speed bump. I'm looking in my rear view mirror and I asked Garcia, man, what's up with this lady? Why is she looking at me so much? And he was like, oh, that's that lady. That's Wendy. And I said, I'm like, I seen the 2 kids and I said, what's she doing up here? What is she doing here? Oh no. She came to make sure everything is all right because he's leaving. He's leaving out of town tomorrow. So I got to get this done tomorrow morning before he leaves. And I'm like, all right, we leave. We go back to the hotel. He says, but I asked him in the car before Katie called. I said, what's she doing up here? He was like, she came up here to see if everything was all right with the kids. And it says, so he calls Katie and hey, what's going on? I seen this lady up here. Oh no, she's making sure that everything's fine the time he's leaving tomorrow on the flight or whatever the fuck he's going. I said, oh, so we got to do this tomorrow, huh? And he was like, yeah, because he's leaving. She came to see the kids. So if this was on Thursday, think about that. She's saying the day before the murder is Thursday, but I seen her face and everything. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, we drive, we go back to the hotel and I'm sitting down in the chair in the hotel. And it's like, he's looking, he's like, yo, it's all right. And I'm like, no, I'm just curious what the fuck this lady's doing here. Oh, I don't know don't worry about it. That shit, everything's good, man. She's just making sure everything's all right. The day before the murder. So again, this is like the schedule of the week of the murder for Creative Preschool. So Wednesday, July 16th, dropped off by Dan Markel at Creative Preschool, picked up by Wendy. As a member, she has that Wednesday overnight. She sees him at Whole Foods and decides to go to BurgerFi because she doesn't want to run into Dan last time she sees him. And so she drops him off the morning at Creative Preschool. The only thing I can think of is it would be possible if it was like in the morning. But, she did have those kids for a brief period of time on Thursday morning. And then picked up by Dan Markel at 5 and then dropped off in the morning by Dan. And then he's dead. But this is really interesting because this is the text that Wendy, when she's at her parents' condo in Miami, staying with them, she sends this text. Are you in Tallahassee? July 14th through 18th? I just want to know if I can have the kiddos on the 16th. Thank you. Look up here at the Wednesday, the 16th, right? That's her night. And it's a predetermined schedule. So of course she could have her day. She's just basically saying, is the schedule still the same? And you wrote back, yes, you can. She's confirming the schedule is still the same. And why did she need the kiddos on the 16th if she was just going to pick them up and take them to Whole Foods for dinner? She wasn't even doing anything with them that night. What was the event on the 16th that she needed them for? So anyway, we just heard Sigfredo talk about how they went around and they were scoping out the house. So this was in the police report, and this is what it reads. It says, after the homicide was reported in the press, a resident of the Ashford Club Apartments, which is a group of apartments that's right behind Dan's house, and where Dan's house on Trescott, there is a drainage ditch that goes in between them, and there's a little park. It says that It says a resident reported seeing two men park a bluish silver Prius type car on the southeast corner of the complex parking lot around mid-morning on one of the weekdays immediately before July 18th, 2014. So it says because we got there at 10 a.m. We were in a hotel. We were hanging out, just chilling. I said, man, I'm going to go to sleep. We have to get up. The next day, it was Thursday. The next day, we drove around there. I went around the block. I went around the block to the other park behind his house. He said, Garcia, pull in here real quick. Let me go see if he is home. So we pulled in. He walked over there. He came back. He was like, go around the house. He was driving. So they were in doing stuff that day before the murder. I mean, I don't know if, this person doesn't seem to recall exactly what day it was. These two men got out of the vehicle, walked down to the park behind the apartment complex that parallels a large storm drainage ditch. This ditch is at the fence rear end property line of the Markel's home on Trescott Drive. The residents described the driver as a white male, tall, slender, with a runner's build. I don't consider Sigfredo to have a runner's build based on the stuff that I've seen. It says the men walk behind the apartment complex, drainage ditch, white male, slender, fair complexion, runner's build, wearing a light colored ball cap. I never saw Sigfredo in a ball cap on the July trip. It might possible that this person's getting confused with the June trip. It's a month, so it would be weeks. Because look at right here, the car that they brought up was this bluish type. It's not a Prius, but what's so interesting is that they tagged it as a Prius type. And if you remember, this person doesn't have a date on here right now, but I think this person definitely appears to, I think, maybe have come forward. I'd have to double check on that because I didn't include the date's not present here. I wish it would said on this date a resident came forward, but we know that the Prius information about the Prius fleeing the scene was not released until about a year after the murder to the press, right? That was kept under, the police did not release the information about the getaway car. So this seems pretty credible. I mean, look how close the silver Prius is, and they said bluish, and it was reported to be right where someone would go to stake out the back of that house. It says the passenger was described as a shorter man with a stocky build and dark hair, the darker complexion. Again, that also matches up with the person who was the passenger on the June trip in a bluish type car was Rivera, right? Because Rivera was in the passenger seat and Sigfredo was driving because he rented that bluish car. So it says the passenger described the shorter man, stocky build, dark hair, darker complexion, resembling Italian or Spanish descent. When the two men returned to the car about 10 minutes later, the passenger was carrying an unknown black object in his hand. That could have been something that he had been carrying before and the person just didn't see. The driver's pants appeared to be wet up to the knees. Sigfredo and Garcia, I think Rivera would have remembered that detail about getting wet. Or Sigfredo getting wet. Maybe not. It had been 2 years since he was confronted. Or it could have been Anthony Ortiz. So Sigfredo and Lewis are similar to their physical descriptions as given by the Ashford Club Apartments residents. Garcia is taller and slender. Rivera is shorter with stockier to complexion. As set forth below, evidence established that they were in Tallahassee on the day of the murder, and they rented a silver pine Mica Toyota Prius for the trip to South Florida. Both Garcia and Rivera are convicted felons in the state of Florida. I don't know. It's there. Think of how the details match up. Again, if you know you're witnessing a major event or a murder, it's a shame you see something, you don't go write it down, the time you saw it, whatever. It's just you kind of come back and give things the best of your memory. And people's memories are fluid and confusing. And so who knows? So they're talking about that day. So this is going, so that's page 78. So this is page 77. He's like, oh man, don't worry about that shit. Everything's good, man. She was just making sure everything was all right. And he doesn't like that Wendy saw him. And so you keep reading on. It says, it was early in the morning. It was like 12. I was like, man, I'm good. I don't want to fucking drink. Investigator Isom. So this all happened before noon? Yeah, before 12. On Thursday, you drove by and you saw her walking the kids. You asked him, hey, that's Wendy. She's making sure that we're going to do this or whatever. Wouldn't it be, what if Wendy went in the morning? I know this is highly speculative, but if you look back to this, if Wendy had them that night, what if she went and dropped off, like, I've got friends that do this stuff all the time. They have their kids. I've seen it. They do handoffs all the time with the kid stuff. You go take the kid to school and then the divorced parents meet and they switch off, laptops. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Wendy was, before dropping, it would be on the way to go past Dan's house that morning. If you think about her going from Aqua Ridge to Tharp Creative Preschool, she could very easily, just in a very direct, very explainable way, get to go stop at Dan, whether to drop off something to the kids, some of their stuff or something. So if he's thinking it's before noon, and they're all coked and drugged up, maybe it was, I don't know. It says Thursday they were dropped off at 8:30 a.m. I don't think the guys would be up at 7:30 that Thursday morning, and that's probably perhaps where they saw him. But I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. But again, there should be cell phone information stuff, and I'm sure that law enforcement would have figured it out, or they're intentionally keeping this murky. I also do know that Luis Rivera was shown a lineup, but it's very murky and confusing. I've seen the pictures that Rivera was shown. But it's kind of like, it's like a dead end. I don't know. Oh, that's for another time. But he was showing a photo lineup of Wendy along with other people. But I don't want to get into that. So yeah, so it says here, so you drove by, you saw her walking the kids, you ask him, he says, that's Wendy. She's making sure that we're going to do this or whatever, that she wanted to make sure that we were up here, and she thought that we were lying and that he was lying because they don't even know I'm in the car until she see me that day. You were like, yeah, but your car has got tinted windows. Just you even know what kind of car you guys are in? Answer, a car is not even tinted like that. You can see through it. You can see through real. It's not tinted. It's not dark. It's like people think. And right, but she wouldn't know you from out of town. She wouldn't know you from anybody. You were like, yeah, she wouldn't know me from anybody. You can see you got a little short guy in the car like this because I'm driving like this. And then you see Garcia is in the passenger side, and she looked and then he looked. And, that's when it caught my attention. I'm like, what's up with this lady looking at the car? Because I know she wanted to make sure we was up there. And I guess Katie and Katie told them everything. And then he called Katie. And I remember him leaving that day. And we were like, he called Katie, yo, everything all right with this lady? And she's like, yeah, everything's straight. Don't worry about it. Just make sure that you get that shit done. You hear that? Yeah. Or she tells you that. No, I can hear her talking on that phone. So at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if it's Wendy because it gave us the information that Louise thinks that this is all done for Wendy. And that's what he's told. So we wouldn't even know who the lady's name is if it probably wasn't for this incident where he goes, hey, that's Wendy. And then he even goes, Sigfredo says, that's my homie. And another thing to back up that line of thought is something that Catherine McManus' defense team both brought up a couple times, which is the fact of when the hole in the Prius gets shot, which we'll cover in a second. Shadrick Nobles heard them say, well, just tell the lady to come help us, the local resource, the lady to get the money, the lady to rob, the lady's up there making sure everything is okay, the local resource that's making sure she knows where Dan is during the day of his murder, has reasons to talk with him. Because there have been so many problems. It seems like there was a lot of hit attempts that when he was like, fuck, I need to get involved, man. I got to man some of these details to make sure we know where he is so that this gets done. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. That's where I think Wendy, I think that's why we've got her now here instead of it just being, she's driving by the crime scene. She's got a reason to talk to Dan that day. She's calling, leaving messages. He tells her he's going to the gym for size class during these specific period of time. She's got the alibi. She's broken. This is also planned, in my opinion. Saying that she recognizes her without the question. He doesn't have to ask. He didn't have to ask. He didn't have to call her and ask none of that shit. He already knew. He is already saying, why is Wendy here? Yeah, no. I asked him, why is she up here? And then he relays to her on the phone, why? Yeah, he relays to her, why she come up here? That's the conversation. So it's not a question if it's Wendy. He already knows it's Wendy. Oh, he already knows it's Wendy. Question. And he is telling Katie, why is Wendy here? To make sure that he was up here, to make sure he wasn't lying, and that she was just paying, and that she was just paying him for nothing. So Tudu has met Wendy? Yeah, I think he did. Matter of fact, I am even fixing to answer that right here because I'm not 100% on that question. Okay. Did you know Wendy? No, not at all. Did you ever see her before? Just that day I seen her, that Thursday. I'm not going to say I never met her. I never seen her. But I don't know if he met her. He know, but I know he said that's Wendy. And I'm like, all right. Okay, all right. And Kate says she wants to make sure that we were up here. And you heard her voice say that? Yes, sir. All right. So are you back in the motel when he wants to start drinking? It's before noon. Yeah, we're hanging out. We're hanging out now. And we're in the hotel hanging out. The next day, I'm like, man, don't get drunk. If you're going to do something, you got to do it right. Man was toasted. Wake up in the morning, first thing he does, chug. I was taking a shower. I'm like, please don't tell me you're drinking, man. He says, man, I'm only taking a shot. Everything gonna be all right. He's over here taking bumps. Like, oh, man, fuck. So at noon back on Thursday, are you there? And did you go anywhere else or did you go someplace because the car has got to get shot? Yeah. We were driving around. That's when we seen the black boy with his car, a Shadrick. And he was driving around looking for coke. Matter of fact, he was driving looking, but so he's saying Sigfredo was. And it says, so that's when I'm in the back, they're talking about, they're following Shadrick, and then this is the hole in the car. It says, he was playing with a gun. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. I heard, I'm driving. Boom. I jump. I'm like, yo, what's up, man? You all right? Out of nowhere, I look at the car, and it was just like, it wouldn't move. I was like, yo, this car is not moving. What you did to the car? I was just laughing because he's so stupid. I'm like, what did you do with the car? He was like, oh man, I don't know. I said, we ain't got no gas. How the hell we ain't got no gas? And so we stopped, he looked under and he's like, oh shit, it's the line. I said, you shot the line? Are you serious? So we pushed the car on the side of the road. The black boy came up. He was like, man, y'all come with me to AutoZone. I'm like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying with the car. So I'm in the car and I'm still in the car. And they come back and he was like, so they took him to AutoZone. So that's Shadrick. There's the hole. What a coincidence. It would just hit that one. That was such a lucky thing to add credibility to Rivera's. That when they went and found that as a AAA card and they threw it up and they actually like the chances that he would actually hit that line and they would be able to find it. And they're talking back at Shadrick and talking about how you rented them a hotel for them because I guess they didn't want it in their name. So they moved. And there's Shadrick. And then there's also some that Lewis robbed him and maybe some other people that were in the hotel room partying. So maybe we can watch just a little bit of Shadrick. I don't know if he's here tonight. But this is you know what? Shout out to Jay, Shaming of the Jay. So Shadrick goes in and he has done this a few times where he'll ask for me or be like, who's the lady when Jay's talking to someone else? He's like, where's Fancy? So he left this, I think like a week ago or within a week because Jay sent it to me. Every time I see Jay sends me when Shadrick drops in, he says, I'm trying to get, I guess that's drunk with that fancy fiction lady. She cool as fuck for real. And people question if that's Shadrick. Let me just say it absolutely is Shadrick. Here's the evidence. Here's the evidence. Let me see. There he is. This is his verification video. Subscribe to Shadrick. Wait for it.
You know what? It's all it's all hanging out, my dude. Stay in, nigga. Believe it.
Did you hear that? He said, believe it. So there's like questions about, is that really him? That doesn't look like him. I'm sorry. This is all the verification.
Believe it.
Believe it. Come on. That's all authentic. That's 100%. That there's no denying that, Shadrick. So anyway, subscribe to him. Why not? He's got a really funny thing on here. Like, what is this? Shadrick's posting this. What is this?
What the hell?
Lashley. I love. This one I love. It's my favorite one. Let's watch it real quick. Yeah, I got We got it. But anyway, so that's Shadrick. So anyway, let's go a little bit. Let's watch a little bit of Shadrick here on the stand because we're here. Stop sharing. Just to give you a little sense of Shadrick. So he takes them to go fix the... And he sees them on both trips, which is like a coincidence, but it really isn't because Tallahassee's small and these little neighborhoods, if you're hanging outside, it's you're gonna run into the same people in the same areas. It's not that big. Let me see here. I'm just gonna pick. I hope I get. Wait, this might be funny. Like where he's being funny. Hold on. Let's see. We get what we get. This is just gonna get a little taste of Shadrick.
Here's the thing you said.
I'm just going to repeat everything you said twice, Mr. Singer.
Yeah, she's trying to paint that picture, buddy.
Oh, stop. No, be quiet. It'll ask you a new question.
Trying to paint that picture incorrectly.
Give me a second.
Right?
The thing is the thing that's so funny about this is that these lawyers are trying to like manhandle him and trying to get him to say things, and he's just not having any of it. It's very funny.
Can we go start? I just want to clarify something before I ask the question.
Bullshit.
Look at him. Tell him, Shadrick. Look at him. Look at him. He's great. Let's get some action.
Mm-hmm.
And you violated your probation. Now you're a convicted felon.
I guess.
I
What
guess.
I call it.
Well, I'm asking you, sir.
I don't know.
Well, you were on probation and you violated your probation, correct?
Yeah. As a result of the violation, you're with.
I don't care about
I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, blow you up.
this.
The cocaine.
Oh man, here we go.
All right. So you're saying that a gentleman asked you to go get cocaine, right?
All right. That's Shadrick. Ain't falling for it. Shadrick's way or the highway. He even turns to, I think, at some point to Judge Hankinson, I think he says like, fuck this shit or something. I'm like, what? It's very funny. Yeah. So what's up, Shadrick? There's your shout out. I think he got robbed. I think Louis held him up. It says here, he was here for a little bit talking about Shadrick. He was here with Garcia. I was mad as hell that day. I didn't want to come up here to make friends. So he was there with Garcia hanging out. It seemed like they were best friends for a little bit. It's funny. Shadrick. Talking about the owl. Okay, let's move on. Almost done here. They're talking about how they went to Markel's house and essentially, killing him. And they're talking about they get back, and I'm talking about the money drop, and they're calling Anthony Ortiz Hermano there to go pick Tuto up. And then here, this is important. It says, but you sent Hermano. This is after they get back from killing Dan in July. It says he sent him to go get him, and he wrote back, yes, because Hermano was like my do boy. Go run and go do this, go do that, go over here, go take my mom, go do this, It says, Katie knows Hermano? Yeah, and this is Anthony Ortiz, the guy who died on I don't know if it was suspiciously, but in Rhode Island in 2017. It says, yeah, she knows Hermano. Not like that. She probably had known Hermano for a year. And then you leave the kids in the house. How can you leave them with this guy? I don't know. If the guy's a sex predator, you don't know nothing about this man. Leaves the kids, leave the kids over here. Come on, man. I used to get mad. How are you going to leave the kids with this dumbass over here? This is a 40-something-year-old, supposedly did a couple years in prison. We don't know his background like that. And you give it mad at him, leaving kids like that at the house. So Hermano goes, apparently, he tells you you found him. Yeah. Again, all the calls with Ortiz that morning that we're talking about, now they're back. Okay. And so at this point, Luis has given all this information, fresh information, and we've applied it to both the June and July trips. And then this is when Patrick Sanford comes in and asks some clarifying questions. It incorporates both trips. So let's go over those really quickly. It says, Sanford, so FBI says, so a while back you talked about when you first came, you talked about it a little bit. You talked about when you came to Tallahassee, that Tuto was there, where the house was, where the first place you came to Tallahassee. How did you get to Tallahassee? You stopped, you said something about a map, a gas station, and you threw it away. What was the first place you went to when you got to Tallahassee? Answer, to the hotel. Question, how did you know how to get to the hotel? Answer, he drove around, he drove straight. He went around. He was like, let's find a hotel. He drove back there and he found it, unless he knew already where it was at. But he went straight to the hotel. So there's no telling unless he's been there before. Who knows without me? But what the fuck do I know? But he went straight to the hotel. So he's kind of saying he probably went there another time, but he's not being directly asked about it. And he doesn't seem to really know for sure. But he's alluding to the fact that there was a third trip. It says, did he act like he knew where he was going, or was he just driving around at random? No, he acted like he knew what he was doing. Okay, so when he went to the house, he was using his phone? No, he didn't use nothing. He didn't have a map on the phone. He used his brain and he drove there. How did he know where to go? Well, he had a piece of paper, but he didn't have the paper with him. He'd seen the paper one time. He just knew where to go. Like I said, he probably had been here before he brought me. So again, kind of a mention of a possible third trip. So it wasn't like a really new thing Kawas had uncovered in Arizona. He's a couple times now, he's kind of thrown it out there. He doesn't know for sure, but he's alluding. He's being honest about there probably, it says, like I said, he probably been here before he brought me. Did he say that? I asked him. No, but in my knowledge, for you to get there so quick, because fuck, Tallahassee is a confusing place. Did he use Garmin or a navigational tool? I'm not going to sit here and make another story. The man drove straight to the man's house without a paper in his hand. He didn't need a paper. He drove back. That's his house right there. I remember the number 2116. Okay. And then you drove, or locksmith, whatever, and then you drove. He's talking about taking the car with him. His ass was so drunk. This is when they're back. And then it says you drove, da, da, da. No, he didn't drive it. It was in my car. Somebody drove it back to the rental car place. Oh, him. Remember, I picked him up in my car, told him, let's go. We got there. I changed cars and I jumped in and I parked it. Did you ever have any trouble with the renter car people for the Prius about it being so late or anything? Because remember how we saw they kept extending it and then Rivera lost it because he was drunk or like that? Answer, no. I mean, they called me a couple of times when we were going to bring the car, but they never really complained. Did the first rental car company, the first trip, did they ever call you on? And so they're referring to the June trip. So they kind of already know. They've investigated. Do they recall, was there any discussion on the phone? For what? No. With him, because he would have been the one that rented the car. No, I don't know. I don't even know what he did with that car. I'm not concerned. If I rent something in my name, I'm more concerned about it. So he didn't seem to know that the rental car company called and said, why are you out? This was supposed to be local use only, and you're pinging in Tallahassee. So it doesn't seem like that Sigfredo conveyed that to Lewis, or Lewis doesn't remember, but I believe him. There's no reason to lie about that if everything else he's giving. And it says, right, he says, because I'm worried about, what's going to happen with the car if you get into an accident. I don't care what he did with the first car. Whatever he did with the first car, that shit really ain't concerned me. Whatever he did, he did. I just don't know if you overheard him having any phone calls. No, not at all. Or conversations with the first rental car company, or if it wasn't supposed to be out of town, you guys. No, not at all. Not that I know of. No. Okay. But when you left the first trip after not succeeding or anything, because you were all doing just following him around, losing him at the childcare place, did you just get frustrated and say, let's get out of here? Answer, yeah. I told him we are out of here because I had to go back to work on Monday and I said, we got to go. So, yeah, so they're trying to get information from him, but he does not seem to be aware that the rental car company was calling and summoning them back or asking for explanations. And it says, yeah. And it says the Prius he drove a little bit. He doesn't seem to know about the other rental car companies. Second. Okay. Almost done here, guys. This was going to be a long one. So this is it. There's nothing really here, but just because it concludes at just the ending, it says, talking about where that piece of paper may be that Charlie gave to, or passed on to Katie to give to Sigfredo. So that's it. I'm tired. That's a lot. Any questions? So now I'm questions, and then we'll wrap it up. It's 11, so Eastern Standard Time, so I know people are tired. Any questions? Drop them now. I'm going to go to my Patreon to see what they wanted to be read online for this live stream, or questions, but drop yours here and I'll start if you have any. That was a lot of information. I want to add this back up. Hold on. What do you think? Do you think Jeff was set up? Hold on. Do you think Jeff was set up? I do. Just because of this. Like, what are the chances they walk off a lot, those tiny little lots, they walk off with a 4-door silver sedan each time? I feel like that was something that was in the instructions to do. Okay. I'm going to read my Patreon things. And one of them says, Fancy, if and when Wendy is charged with first-degree murder, is there any chance at all the state could go for the death penalty, or is the death penalty not considered an option in part of out of respect for Dan's views? I think it's twofold. I think that if they didn't get the death penalty against Sigfredo, who shot Dan Markel twice in the face, point blank almost, I don't think they're going to get it for Wendy. I think not by a long shot. And because just given all the direct evidence they had, you know, like all the stuff we went over, he's in the car, he's at the murder scene, he's renting the, you know, it's just like undeniable. With Wendy, it's more deniable. And so I don't even think it's an option. And yeah, I just don't think they have what they need to go for something that's stiff on her. I don't think it would ever stick. And I think that the prosecution would use the death penalty whenever it serves their purposes for leverage. And they probably don't take the victim's views. And that would be a slippery slope if they did. In terms of how the system works, unless we abolish the death penalty, which I think we should. I think we should abolish the death penalty. And I think, I just think it's crazy. Just you go anywhere abroad for a while, or you talk to somebody that's from Europe or somewhere else. It's crazy that the cops can lie to you in interrogations and stuff like that. That's so wild to people who don't have that system. They can't believe we do it. And I tend to agree. Personal, just my personal. But again, I would be open to entertaining people convincing me otherwise if there's very good reasons of why we should have it and why we do. But just in general, I do not like that. I think it does more harm than good. Sue Ann wrote, I was wondering who would have been the one to spill the beans about the first hit attempt where they lost 50. I mean, that's rumored. This is like over toilet wine jailhouse talks. I mean, it would be on the equivalent of the weight that, say, Amy Manka or those jailhouse rats on Katie say that she lifted her shirt in the pod and showed her breasts and said, oh, the professor paid for these. Or, you know, do you think God will ever forgive me? It's just along those lines. It says, first hit attempt where they lost 50,000. So you had a jailhouse rat. I think it was Nicholas Alderage, who has passed away now, but he had a friend that was a lawyer, and so that knew this case or had Dan Markel as a professor. So he was telling her, she had said, hey, if you see Sigfredo, you get any information you're in, come tell me, because he killed this guy named Dan Markel and I want information. So he was doing it as a friendship for her. And he said that, you know, that Sigfredo was very nice and he liked him despite this murder stuff, and that Sigfredo carried himself like he did the murder, like he wasn't trying to hide it in prison. And then he said he would do life for Catherine Magbanua, and he doesn't think she should be in jail for something he did, and that it was ultimately that the mother-in-law was very evil, and you know, referring to Donna and saying that that they had previously hired and there was 2 jailhouse rats. So I may be getting a little bit more blending them, but I believe it was Nicholas Alders said this after toilet wine, the night that Magbanua, very closely, when he heard that Magbanua had been arrested, Sigfredo and him made toilet wine. He opened up and he said that there had been a previous attempt where the hitman had taken the money and run. And, you know, put it right beside Jeff Lacasse of Wendy, who is a known liar, in my view, and everyone else's, saying that there had been a previous attempt, or Charlie had looked into it and it said it would cost $15,000 to $50,000. So those two things match. They just do. Heard it more than once, put it that way. Heard it more than once that there was another hitman that took the money and ran, or there was another hitman attempt in the summer of 2013. A relocation attempt failed. And I went back and I looked into the divorce files and everything. And you can see when they're about to have that relocation hearing, I can see that subpoenas were, everybody, I can see who Dan was summoning in to take depositions and to bring in to be on his side. And then I could also see who Wendy was. And I saw that Tova Nugent or whatever that was, or something like that, but it's Tova Walsh, who I'm assuming father knows about fatherhood and whatever. A big Wendy defender, went on 2020 and put her reputation and her face behind Wendy and her family. Tova Walsh, she was actually supposed to call into that relocation hearing, as well as Gary Cohen, because he was probably going to testify to that $115,000 a year job that he was giving her at the law firm. Because I saw that letter offer employment attached in all the divorce files. Okay. Julia says, my question is that once Don is found guilty, would Charlie wait for his appellates to fail before he finally turns on Wendy? Or with his mother facing life without parole, will he finally flip on his trust fund sister? I used to think that it would take Donna's death for Charlie to flip, but if she's found guilty, that is as good as dead. Thank you. Fight for justice for Professor Markel. Pray that all guilty parties are punished. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, people that I know that know the family, know them well, know the dynamics of them, not in just a way where you watch some videos in trial and you pick up on all the general things out in the public. I'm talking people that know them, and says that time will come. Again, I don't know when it will be. I don't know when his appellates are done. I don't know what's going to personally flip him to the other side, but he is not going to live the rest of his life. He's very much about getting even and about keeping score and winning. And I think that it's a matter of time. I think it's one of those two events would probably be the triggers, which is all hope lost for Donna being convicted and possibly unable or out, living long enough to overturn the conviction, or her death. But this person tells me, make no bones about it, it will come. And honestly, this may be the genius of Wendy, because she planted a lot of things in the beginning, pointing at her brother and his jokes that could, telling Jeff Lacasse about her brother looked into it previously. I really do think that those would be things. I think she was playing the long game. I think she really was into strategy. I think she lived with Dan Markel for, a decade or whatever. And she picked up some of the stuff. And I think there's a lot of late night talks and long walks on the beach between Donna and Wendy. And I just think it was very well planned out. And there was just a lot of misdirection and smoke and mirrors and things like that would only help Wendy. She was going in looking out for herself, put it that way. And I think in the end, Charlie's going to realize that Wendy was looking out for only herself. And I think that's going to be something that fuels Charlie to get revenge. When and how, I don't know, but I don't know. I may be in a nursing home myself, and, I get the news that Charlie has come to the table and has given, damning testimony against his sister, but we will just wait and see. It is a question to ponder. Someone wrote, looking at the signed checks from your last live stream, they give a timestamp. The signatures are very different. Who else besides Donna is signing these checks to Katie? Harvey, Erica? Thank you. I'll have to go look at that. Someone looked at it and says, yeah, it says that's interesting. Okay, so I'd have to go look at that. That's new to me. Should we go do that now? Let me read the last one and we'll go do that. I've followed your work for years, which leaves me with a few questions. My burning desire is to know why in the hell Katie so fair won't sell the Adelsons out. Why? I'll tell you why. I have it on my own guts and noticing. I've said all the time of noticing things, and also I kind of somewhat had it confirmed that Catherine Magbanua did not see herself as truly culpable for the murder because she was in the middle and did not pull the trigger. And she just, like she said, you saw her in the proffer. She's like, he took it from my diaper bag and then I didn't ask questions. I didn't know the name. So she was able to put herself in a compartment where she truly thought, Sigfredo's the murderer. I'm not the murderer. I'm not going down. Sigfredo's either going to come in and save me. But there's it's much like Wendy, where, Wendy felt like she was shielded and protected, that if there were going to be anybody that was going down, it wasn't going to be her, that she was buttressed by her mom and her brother who acted, as shields for her. And I think Katie had that same impression that, well, it's really Sigfredo's the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. So I think that fueled her desire to stay steadfast and that she truly was not her murderer. And I think the second reason is that I'm told and that I feel, and I've said all along, is that this cultural shame of not wanting to admit in the beginning to her dying mother, to her brother who is dealing with all this fallout with his wife being a felon, stealing millions of dollars from people that loved and trusted her in their business at a forensic accounting firm, and giving it all to a Santeria priestess who Katie's sister-in-law, Samantha, had put in a court filing that Katie had introduced her to. So, and that this Santeria princess, I put it on my YouTube and whatever, I put it out there, I might circle it. There's actually a picture of her and she's visiting Katie in jail and she drove up to Tallahassee, this Santeria priestess, and visited Katie in jail. So I think it's just the shame of admitting you're a murderer to your kids and to your brother. I think also don't discount the cultural shame. I have had the blessing to have interacted with a lot of people in an international setting, and I have been able to interact with a woman who a young girl from China and not a native English speaker, and all those cultural, or the Philippines, or and someone from South Africa. Just, you have to really take into what's in their minds, at how they're raised. And a lot of it's shame. And, Filipinos, it's their culture is it's Catholic, I believe. And, or I don't know what her religion, I know she was speaking a lot about, Jesus in jail and ordering, in the prison stuff. She was ordering a lot of, I saw some religious stuff in there, and they're, believing in gods. I think a lot of it's just the shame of admitting that you're a murderer, and having your kids know that, and having your brother know that, and having all of your friends like Yindra know that she somehow was going to be able to save face and Sigfredo was going to save her. The fact that she is giving the excuse of that she didn't want her baby daddy to get the death penalty, that's total bullshit in my view. First of all, she doesn't give a flying fuck about Sigfredo. She's on jailhouse calls. I shared, with the Baja Harrison letters, he heard jailhouse calls where Katie is in it with this woman, Trinity. They're talking about getting married. She's in love. Yes, you can still have loyalty to your baby daddy, but that first trial in 2019, she was pointing the finger at Sigfredo anyway. And in her second retrial, she was like, yeah, it looks pretty bad with all this stuff. So she was throwing him under the bus regardless. That's no reason for her not to. She was throwing him under the bus already. In the 2019 trial, her lawyers attacked him and pointed the finger and, were fine with him being the killer and protected her. And Sigfredo instructed Sam Zaganah. Sam Zaganah said that he was instructed not to fight, not to hurt Catherine Magbanua. Sam Zaganah said that on the record, that Sigfredo said, don't attack her. Protect her, right? And in that letter he wrote her after he was convicted, he said, I got your back. I'm going to fight this until they get sick of me and give me the key and let me get out of here. But I'll keep doing you. And don't worry, next trial, I won't be next to you with all my bad juju. He said all this. So he looked like, so he's saying, use me as your tool. Use me as your tool. I'll go down for you. So the fact she's saying that she can't accept a Muni deal. Well, I don't know if she'll walk right out of jail, but she's not going to have to do the time she's doing now, or even close to it. Or maybe she might have gotten time served. Who knows? Or maybe another year. Who cares? She would have pretty much gotten to write her deal if she had given credible information. If she had flipped, when she would have been useful, but she didn't, and it was because she basically had lawyers that are essentially working for her for free. If they are to be believed that they took this at a huge discount, you got someone like Tara that's going to go into case management meetings and wag her finger. And then you have her partner like laughing, like this is all a big joke to them, and they can put this on their social media that they can, bully local reporters and, not have, it's like they were treating this, in my opinion, a little bit like a game or like a stepping stone to get their name out in the media. And I recently rewatched Tara Kawas's and Christopher DeCose on that show they did in between her retrial, where Catherine also talks from jail. And so it just, just seeing Tara again, just seeing she's loving it. She's loving the camera. So if you see you've got like someone out there that's out there, acting as if they're going to like pound heads for you, and it's not really costing you the money that it would regularly cost someone to have two out-of-town fighters like that who don't really know Tallahassee or the cultural, the jury. And, I've gotten into that before, but if you've got that, think about it, you got these like two attorneys that act like, and I think Tara Kawas has a savior complex. And I heard also too, that she did believe Katie, even till after, the conviction. That's why she was like she really did create this in her head, this world where she was able to discount the Dolce Vita, discount all the checks, to discount, making $1,500 a night at Club Fate, to discount just all the things that you would have to do to buy the theory, which the jury ultimately did not do. I know that happens with defense attorneys. I know with defense attorneys, it's kind of your job to believe your client, and it must be very confusing. But with here, it would be different if Tara didn't do all those hallway interviews with mentor lawyer, and if she didn't come give that gaggle after sentencing, and if she didn't, throw out Walter Rayburn when everybody, and no Tallahassee juror was ever going to take that guy seriously. Just like all of the, stuff around it. Not now all the stuff where now she's a witness. I don't know. But Katie did not want to admit it because she wanted to save face and have it both ways. And it wasn't really costing her anything. She thought she would win, right? So that's what it was. Okay, I want to go look at those checks on my last live stream to see if Donna's signatures look any different. And then I'm going to read the questions, and then I'm out of here. Which live stream was that? Is it this one? It's really jumping, sorry. Yeah, I think it was in the trivia portion. Did I post all those checks to my Patreon? Is that where, sorry, this was a really long one. Maybe that's what you were looking at. I can't remember. I get a little brain dead after doing an hour of this. There we go. Yeah, I see what you're saying on this slide. I could totally see someone forging it. Or you know what I mean? Like a office assistant doing it. But everything else besides the signature looks the same. Maybe Harvey did it. I wonder which one's real. I'd have to go back and look at them all. That's interesting. Thanks for pointing that out, Angela. Angela, I gotta say, is one of the, since the very beginning, 2020, Angela has always been, I remember back in the very beginning, Fancy Fiction, this whole thing, it was a new name and everything. I remember someone was giving me, it was a little live stream, and Angela was there, and Angela was got my back or something. I remember thinking, oh, I've actually got people that like me, and it was Angela, and she's still here to this day. I've never met her, but it's like very cool. Shout out to Angela. Okay, questions. Let's get the cars up there just to make the point as the background. And then it's it. Okay, I'm going back as far as I can. Questions. Albert says, could you update anything you know about Brian Roman, Janice, June, Whitney sometime soon? Yeah. Let me go tap my sources. Yeah, let me do that because I should probably reach out and connect with some people. Let's see. Turquoise Kid said, if you could speak to one Adelson, who would it be? Wendy. It would be Wendy. Because I would like to confront her. I would know what I would get from the others. But I would like to speak with her. I would like to really ask her some very direct questions and not let her squirm around me. Harvey, who cares? Donna, I've heard her talk. I've heard hours of her talk, so I know what her responses would be. So therefore, I'm not curious to get them. And Charlie, I don't even want to start a conversation with him, and I think we all know why, because it would never end. Rob, maybe there will be a one day, but I've got a sense of him, and I would want to speak to him to only know what it's like to have been for him, like all of us. We hope he writes a book, him and Jeff. But I kind of know the goodness is there, so I'm less. I want to know, but I'm less hungry. But I would like to talk to Wendy. I'd like to sit in a room with her for 30 minutes and just go off on her and hopefully get something back. Let me see here. Letterman's girls say, we've always heard Donna and Charlie communicate with each other so much, and they think they know everything. Will be interesting to see her on the stand trying not to be a know-it-all. Oh, yeah. It'd be very interesting. I don't know if I want to see Sarah do it, because I know she's such an aggressive and skilled sort of breaking people, getting them to crack, like she did Henry Segura, and then she did with, demolishing Catherine Magbanua. But it seems like Donna is already so pissed off with Georgia that she's already going in there with leverage of being under her skin. So I think it really depends on who's handling her on how Donna's going to react. Will the Markels be on the witness list? I don't think so. I don't think they are. Ruth may be for, there's some damning stuff in Ruth's book. Like there's a moment where it was one of the first times Ruth got to see Dan's sons after his murder, and they all met, I think, in Miami, and they went to some butterfly conservatory or some gardens, and Ruth was sitting alone on a bench, kind of like watching the boys, and Donna comes up to her and goes, who would do this in broad daylight? And Ruth in her heart knows that they did it, and she's putting up with this to see her grandkids. Who would do this in broad daylight? You would, Donna. So I don't think so. Add stuff like that, but looking for questions. I'm way back in the chat. Yeah, I posted some of the call logs and I have the most recent ones and said, yeah, I was the one who saw them and have reported that it's all Harvey and Roshbaum and not a lot of Bree, and it's been like that for several months, or for months. I don't know, several months. I do know she went to Miami for Harvey's birthday party in July. And I also know she has or back in the day, she had, you know, back when everybody was giving her such a hard time about being in love with Charlie, she, you know, I was under the impression that I think she was with somebody. Of course I would go have drinks with Jeffrey Lacasse. Of course I would. All right, I'm winding up. I'm looking for those red question marks. And here's one. Any word on if anyone is visiting Donna and Charlie? No one can visit Donna because Leon County, I think, still suspends their visitation. And we don't have as much visibility on Charlie now. It's all going to be through sources and people who have good sources. And you know what? I'm glad you said that because someone did post on the internet that jumpsuit, whatever, I don't even know, is jumpsuit Pablo, who's posted that he was going to like post a Charlie, so an inmate with a contraband video who knows something about why Charlie was transferred, which of course who knows at this account. I mean, this could be, he heard something. It could be this game of prison telephone, but I'm still going to watch. You know I will. But there was something that he kind of flaked. He said, I'm going to post it on this day. He didn't do it. And then he said he posted soon. But I did see just today that someone that said that he has said again that he's going to post it on Wednesday, which is not tomorrow, the next day. So we'll see. I don't know if that's true. But yeah, so Donna, no. And the calls really are Harvey and Roshbaum. I think Morris went and visited her, but that's it. But the latest calls that I've seen, because I got the records and the calls because I posted that incident she had on 8/20. So it's pretty recent. And she was talking to who I said. Yeah, I think she'll testify in her own defense. Ray of Light Terra Spiritual Services. I think like her and Charlie are cut from the same cloth, that they think that if they can get out, they can charm and fool anybody. Just like they're charming and fooling Donna and Charlie. We hear them charming and fooling themselves on those calls, the self-delusion. I think that will extend to Donna in her defense. And she will have the same arrogance that Charlie had, with Charlie thinking he did great up there. He got a 95 score, according to what he thinks Roshbaum told him. So I think that Donna is the same. I more wonder how Donna and Charlie are doing that they're not talking to each other. Seriously. They're like melting. Because Charlie and Donna are both each other's main source of narcissistic supply. We've heard them on those calls. I mean, they're totally providing each other this emotional and this companionship that really should be reserved for Donna with her husband. And let her grown adult children go off and live independent, full lives. And Charlie should go establishing and growing bonds and relationships with women his own age. But he's not. He's doing that, so they really are a sick little bunch in my view. It's obvious Wendy has lied. Doesn't that waive her immunity? Yeah, I mean, it should, but what lie are you going to catch her on? She qualifies every answer with, I think, I believe, you know, so it's just going to be, even if you just try to pin her on something, it's going to be such a battle. And my hopes is that they're not doing any of that because they're really holding out for the main charge, which is murder and that immunity. But hopefully if they do charge her, they'll get a little more aggressive. And because the case is already, they have, like, think about the work that the prosecution has to do. They've got a really solid case that they're about to try for a fourth time. So one more time, yes, it's adding work, but if you think the foundation is already built. So they're just adding new evidence, whatever they've collected from all these Donna's phones, electronic devices, or whatever's happening. And they just need to do that and do a top up with that. And I think that if they can somehow find a provable lie that does waive her immunity and all this cast cigar bullshit that I don't understand, I think it's definitely, to me, more likely they'll charge her than not. And I'm not just saying that as some idiot that talks on the internet that doesn't have a law degree. Like, I actually do talk to lawyers, you know, I get a consensus. I really do think, and gosh, if they could get rid of her immunity, that'd be awesome. How helpful to help prosecute her. What's the biggest, Bartleby Jones says, what's the biggest argument for not arresting Wendy now? It took less time to catch, investigate, and convict and execute Tim McVeigh. Yeah, I think that Willie Meggs fucked it up and stalled it in the beginning by coming out and saying they didn't have enough evidence, and by refusing to, and maybe warranted, I didn't get to see what he made the call on, but he only approved search warrants to tap phones for Katie Magbanua and Charlie Adelson. Did not think he had enough for Wendy. And, you know, they really, at the beginning, I don't think Isom did the due diligence he needed to do on Wendy. I think he initially bought her story and her being giving her phone. Meanwhile, she didn't give her phone. She was asked for her phone. And the way Isom did it said, like, look, this is how you can help me, is giving me your phone. Can you do that now? And he had her sign it, and he was kind of like pushy about it. And I think that Wendy was not expecting that. I don't think Wendy expected to give up her phone. I think that she was kind of pinned that it would look bad if she didn't. And her whole purpose of going there was to look like this open-armed, wide-eye, how can I help? This is horrible. You know, I'm innocent demeanor that she was trying to pull off. I don't think she expected that. I really don't. That's why she kept saying, you're going to read me my Miranda rights. I'm sorry, can I get this back? I really think that's something that she maybe got a little pressured into and didn't think. I could be wrong. I don't know if she anticipated that 100%. I really don't. But I think what happened is that Isom, you know, they didn't look at Wendy as hard as they could. And they certainly didn't tap her phone. And I think that she was careful from the onset that if they were going to move forward, that she was going to make sure that there were no provable links or any kind of ties, any phone calls. I mean, she's disciplined. And I think they've got her maybe showing her communicating on WhatsApp, but they can't show the contents of those WhatsApp. And I think that they just don't want to, she's going to be the hardest to prosecute. So I think that they're hoping they can keep building evidence against her. I mean, even the text after the night that Charlie was, in the morning after Charlie was convicted, like, your law lawyer protected you, now you're not innocent, stuff like that. I mean, it's not a smoking gun, but it makes it, that innocent people don't talk like that. So I think that, they're saving her for last. I do think they'll take a swing at her, but I think they've been very scared to take a swing and miss. And they, like Georgia said, you only got one shot, and she knows everybody wants her to arrest Wendy. She knows the whole town. She knows that if she wants to be an elected judge, she knows she's got to do that. They can't leave that out there. Not at this point, not with all this media, not all the millions of dollars the FBI have spent, not with the public not even her community. It's a national, it's an international outcry that Wendy's escaped justice and said, the state isn't going to arrest me. Come on now. You're going to just let that out? I think that they'll move on her. I just think they screwed up in the beginning, but they're trying to make up for it. And that's what caused the lag. And then COVID, right? And then you had Katie, who got two lawyers who prided themselves by wearing the state's power by, you know, continuance. So that really, and then COVID. So I think all of that, it's the time. But I hope they move quickly after Donna. Fancy, when do you think Dan's mom knew in her heart that Adelsons did it before they arrested Sigfrido? What's your best guess? Yeah, I think, I mean, I have her book right here. She says that she had a very close father figure, a close, let me see if it says it. I'm looking here. This is what Ruth wrote to me in the book. Dear blank, because it's my real name. Thanks for your amazing creativity and dedication to this story. You are so, we are so grateful for all your contributions. With appreciation, Ruth Markel, sent on September 13th, 2022. And here she says that her, I forgot his name. I wanted to look and see it, but I can't. It's going to take me too long to say. But her uncle, who died shortly after Dan, he said that the first thing when they called, when he had heard, and he was the one who gave Dan the Holocaust ring. And it was like a father to Ruth Markel. And he died shortly after Dan, which was awful for her to deal with those two huge losses in her life. But she said the first thing when he picked the phone and he called her, and he said whatever the Yiddish word is for in-laws. So it was right away. Everybody knew. And so I think she knew right away, but just didn't. I think and she even wrote in her book that she really in her heart wanted to think or didn't want to believe Wendy was involved. And that's why, and she was saying that when she would visit with Wendy and stuff like that, the time in between the rest, she really, really, still cared for Wendy and did not see her that way. Did Leon County Jail stop using tablets? I don't know, but I'm sure it's probably a mixture of both. And that's probably because of asking why Donna would want a chair for her phone call. Well, there's a lot of comments, so I'm sorry. If I'm missing you, I'm scrolling fast. I may miss by something. Yeah, here it is. Mia says it. It's Lazar, Uncle Lazar. Matuna is a Yiddish word for in-laws that you're referring to. Yeah, it was yeah. All right, that is it. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It has been real. Just in summary, the June and July trip, this was such a sloppy murder. I mean, the June trip, you got Sigfrido getting a ticket with the car he rented on June 2nd to get the car. He had to return it, go get another car, and then he signed that it was a local rental, and so it was pinged. The GPS is tracking them as well as their phones. On the June trip, Sigfrido gets called to come back, or gets called out for being out of town, so it doesn't happen. And so there's all that juicy, screw up stuff, meeting Shadrick, and then in July, now it's Luis renting the car and driving. It seems like the roles have switched, and they also get another ticket. What's so crazy on the June and July ticket? They both get tickets in these rental cars, and then shooting a hole in the gas line, and seeing the lady, and then hoping the lady will come help them with the car. There's just a lot of good tidbits in there, and learning about the Latin Kings and Anthony Ortiz and what his role was, what he looked like, where he is, what happened to him. So just seeing it all packaged up, I hope gives you some insight. And just again, the fact that all these cars, again, the weak part in the Jeff Lacasse frame story is that Luis Rivera didn't remember being told to go rent a silver car. Well, maybe he just didn't remember it, because he seemed to think that they were in a black Nissan at some point, and they weren't. You see the cars that Sigfrido rented. So just memory, but I really do think if you just look at this, if you look how small those little rental agencies both were, and you look at Sigfrido walking off twice in June with 2 silver sedans at that small little comfort rental car place, I think the chances are very low. And I think that on that piece of paper, it was about getting a silver sedan, right? That would be part of the plan. So only Sigfredo could answer that. And Luis has a bad or spotty memory around it. And then that's it. I think he was set up, especially given the fact that Wendy knew that he was heading out around the time of the murder in July, and the fact she sent him out the night the murder was supposed to happen in his silver sedan to go get her medicine, just to be out, and again, be that red herring. So I am convinced of this. It's not proven, but I definitely think it's much more likely than not, given how, just look at the screen. Just look at the screen. The guy who was apparently framed, and look at the 3 cars that were rented around to go drive up and murder this guy in the neighborhood and be, you know, seen driving away potentially. Come on. So anyway, thank you, everybody. It's been great. Justice for Dan. If I've made any mistakes, send me a little message. You know what I'll do. I'll correct it. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your trust and for listening to me. Have a great night. It's really a shame that it looks like Rashbaum got that motion. I will say it is funny. This is my closing statement. I think it is funny that in the state of Florida, they're so big about all these sunshine laws, and the way they introduce all this evidence to trial and members of the community that suffered this huge loss. But then it's the defense, right? The defense wants to limit the public's access to a very public courtroom. And then it's a trial it's a trial of a criminal law professor. And there's all of us lay people that are interested in this case and learning about the justice system and what these terms meant, how an investigation works. And it is the defense. It is Donna Adelson's defense and Daniel Rashbaum that wants to limit the public's access to understanding how this trial is going to work and educating our community on it. And you really have to ask yourself why. Why is the defense? Why does Donna not want the public in their trial to see all this evidence? If you truly are innocent and you're going to put on a defense that's going to exonerate you, why the hell wouldn't you want people to come in and observe the justice system? So, and why wouldn't you want the members of the Tallahassee community to come in and be interested in the criminal justice system, how it works? Because those are the people that are electing judges. Those are the people that are electing states' attorneys' offices. So if you're limiting them in this big public trial that rocked a town and it has all of this interest in it, and it's not crazy. It's not Jodi Arias. It's not Scott Peterson. It's not a murder that just happened a year ago. It's over 10 years old. So you got to think yourself, if you want to keep the public out, if you want to keep the Tallahassee community out and other citizens, then you really have to ask yourself why. And you also have to ask yourself, why do you want to limit the Tallahassee community and the true crime community from seeing what really caused the murder of Dan Markel? Why? Just ask yourself that. It makes no sense. That tiny little courtroom. Looks like they got their way. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Have a great night, everybody. I think Wendy and her family and the Adelson's conspiracy, I think framing Jeff was a part of it. You know, maybe not that it would be the most successful frame job, but it definitely would muddy the waters. It definitely would give them something to work with in the courtroom, that Jeff was this jilted lawyer. They get their little useful idiots to write books with titles and chapters in it called Useful Idiot, or jilted ex-person. But no, I think he was the wrong person they picked to frame. But I think that look at the screen. What are the odds? Have a great night, everybody. Toodaloo. Justice for Dan.